Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Dragon Ranger, wielder of the Lost Draco. Night Gem Naruto X Kira Ford Power Rangers Dino Thunder. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Convergence Point. The scorched battlefield reeked of ozone and ash, its once verdant plains reduced to cracked earth and smoking craters. Naruto Uzumaki stood at the front line, golden chakra flickering across his skin like living flame. His breath came in measured intervals, the practiced rhythm of a warrior who had learned that panic was the first step toward defeat. Around him, the allied shinobi forces regrouped, their ranks thin but unbroken. Their regrouping beyond the eastern ridge, Shikamaru called, voice hoarse from shouting commands. Blood trickled from a gash above his eye, but his gaze remained sharp as he surveyed the battlefield. Whatever those things are, they're not using chakra in any way I recognize. Naruto nodded, sapphire eyes tracking the strange rifts that had torn open in the sky 3 days prior. The Fourth Shinobi War had barely ended when these new invaders emerged, crystalline entities that absorbed chakra and multiplied. They weren't White Zetsu, weren't Otsutsuki, weren't anything the shinobi world had encountered before. It's like they're not fully here, Naruto replied, extending his sensory abilities. The golden SHR, Ood of Six Paths Sage Mode illuminated the destruction around him. Their energy, it exists halfway between dimensions. Nearby, Sakura finished healing a Kumogakure shinobi with efficient precision. Whatever they are, conventional attacks barely slow them down. Even my strength just shatters them into smaller pieces that reform. Then we hit them with something unconventional. Naruto's voice carried the quiet confidence that had replaced his youthful bravado. At 19, the war hero had grown into his power, and the responsibility that came with it. Kakashi appeared beside them in a swirl of leaves, his Hokage robe torn and singed. Naruto, Sasuke's located what appears to be their point of origin. The dimensional disturbance is strongest at the Valley of the End. Of course it would be there. The place where everything in Naruto's life seemed to reach its crescendo. He closed his eyes briefly, centering himself. I'll go. Have Sasuke meet me there. The statement wasn't a request for permission but a declaration of intent. Not insubordination. Simply the natural authority of a man who had saved the world once before. Kakashi studied his former student, recognizing the set of his jaw. This isn't like facing Kagaya. These entities exist in multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Even your six paths power might not. All the more reason I should go, Naruto interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. Kurama and I can sense the dimensional distortions better than anyone else. Within him, the nine-tailed fox stirred. The kid's right. These things smell wrong, like they're bleeding through reality itself. Kakashi hesitated only momentarily before nodding. The Allied forces will contain the incursion here. You have 6 hours before we implement the failsafe. The unspoken weight of those words hung between them. The failsafe, a massive sealing technique that would quarantine half the continent at the cost of everyone trapped within. I only need 3, Naruto replied, a ghost of his old grin flickering across his face. He clasped forearms with Shikamaru, exchanged a meaningful look with Sakura, and nodded once to Kakashi before his chakra flared. Golden light enveloped him as he launched skyward, leaving a streak like a comet against the smoke-darkened sky. The Valley of the End bore little resemblance to the historic site Naruto remembered. The massive statues of Hashirama and Madara had crumbled during his final battle with Sasuke years earlier, but now even their rubble had been reduced to dust. At the center of the valley, reality itself seemed to fracture, prismatic cracks spreading outward like a spiderweb frozen in mid-creation. Sasuke stood at the edge of the phenomenon, the tomo of his Rinnegan spinning as he analyzed the distortion. He didn't turn when Naruto landed beside him, but his posture relaxed marginally. About time, he said, the familiar sardonic edge to his voice belying the tension in his shoulders. Traffic, Naruto quipped, studying the spatial anomaly. What are we looking at? A collision of dimensions. Sasuke's mismatched eyes narrowed. Something is attempting to force its way through. From another reality. Something massive. These crystalline entities are just the equivalent of debris being pushed ahead of the actual breach. Naruto extended his senses toward the fracture, wink. Inga's discordant energy patterns assaulted his perception. It feels hungry. It's consuming chakra to widen the breach. At this rate, it will fully materialize within hours. Around them, the air grew dense with potential energy. Static electricity raised the hair on their arms, and the distinctive smell of lightning, sharp and metallic, permeated the valley. Can we seal it? Naruto asked, already knowing the answer. Sasuke shook his head once. Not conventionally, but there might be a way to collapse it inward. Using what? Us. Sasuke turned to face him fully. The power of Indra and Ashura, combined with our respective tailed beast and Dujutsu abilities, might generate enough counter-pressure to force the breach closed. Naruto studied his friend's face. There's something you're not telling me. A fleeting smirk crossed Sasuke's features. Your perceptiveness has improved. Comes with the job. What's the catch? The energy has to go somewhere. Whoever channels the counter-pressure will likely be pulled into the dimensional rift. Sasuke's voice remained level, but Naruto caught the minute tension in his jaw. I should be the one to. No. Naruto's interruption was soft but absolute. Your Rinnegan is our best defense if this fails or if something else comes through. The world needs your eyes more than my chakra. Don't be absurd. Your connection to all the tailed beasts makes you the perfect conduit, Naruto finished. Exactly. Kurama and I can channel the energy better than anyone. They locked eyes, a silent battle of wills that had defined their relationship since childhood. This time, understanding passed between them rather than animosity. Sasuke finally inclined his head a fraction. What do you need me to do? Stabilize the perimeter. Keep the breach from expanding while I prepare. Naruto's chakra began to shift, golden light suffusing with strands of 9 distinct colors as he called upon the chakra of all 9-tailed beasts. Kit, Kurama's voice rumbled within him. If we're pulled through, there's no guarantee we can return. Then we'll just have to find our way back. Naruto replied with characteristic determination. We've done the impossible before. As Sasuke channeled his Rinnegan's power to contain the breach, Naruto entered a meditative stance, balancing the volatile energies of 9 titanic chakra entities within his body. Around him, nature energy flowed like invisible currents, responding to his call. The fracture pulsed, sensing opposition. Crystalline entities began to emerge from the rift, dozens. Then hundreds of them, their faceted bodies refracting the ambient light into painful prismatic bursts. Sasuke's sword flashed, cleaving through the entities with precise strikes. Whatever you're planning, do it now. Naruto's eyes snapped open, concentric ripples spreading from his pupils as he accessed the full depth of Six Paths Sage Mode. Chakra arms erupted from his back, forming complex sealing patterns in rapid succession. Dimensional boundary. Harmonic Convergence seal. He slammed his palms against the ground, sending a pulse of multicolored chakra toward the rift. The technique, improvised from principles of space-time ninjutsu and fuinjutsu, struck the breach with catastrophic force. For one breathless moment, nothing happened. Then the rift collapsed inward, creating a vacuum that pulled at everything nearby. Trees uprooted, earth crumbled, water from the nearby river arced upward in defiance of gravity. Sasuke anchored himself with Susanoo's skeletal form, but Naruto made no attempt to resist. Tell everyone. Naruto began, voice nearly lost in the howling vortex. I know, Sasuke called back, face set in grim lines. I'll find a way to bring you back. A genuine smile broke across Naruto's features as the golden light around him intensified. I'm counting on it. The vortex contracted violently, pulling Naruto toward its center. The last thing he saw was Sasuke's outstretched hand before reality itself seemed to shatter around him. His consciousness stretched impossibly thin across a kaleidoscopic tunnel of fractured dimensions, ACH fragments showing glimpses of worlds both familiar and utterly alien. And then, darkness. Consciousness returned in painful increments. First came sound, a distant mechanical rumbling unlike anything in Naruto's experience. Then smell, earth and stone, but with chemical undertones foreign to his senses. Touch followed, cool, damp rock beneath his cheek, the weight of his own body seemingly increased tenfold. Opening his eyes required monumental effort. When he finally managed it, Naruto found himself staring at a rough stone ceiling illuminated by artificial lights embedded in metal phi. Tourish. Technology beyond anything in the 5 great nations. Kit. Kurama's voice sounded strained, distant. Something's wrong. This place, it's suppressing our chakra somehow. Naruto attempted to sit up, his body responding sluggishly. Are you okay? Intact, but weakened. The dimensional transition drained us severely. A quick internal inventory confirmed Kurama's assessment. Naruto's chakra reserves had plummeted to dangerous levels. Even Sage Mode felt beyond his reach at the moment. With effort, he pushed himself upright and surveyed his surroundings. He appeared to be in some kind of underground cavern that had been converted into a research facility. Archaeological equipment, some recognizable, others utterly foreign, lay scattered around partially excavated artifacts. The artifacts themselves captured his attention. Stone tablets etched with symbols that resembled summoning contracts, fragments of what might have been ceremonial armor, and at the center of it all, a display case containing a gemstone unlike anything Naruto had ever seen. Roughly the size of a plum, the gem pulsed with internal light that shifted between crimson and gold, colors that resonated with Naruto's own chakra signature. Even depleted as he was, he could sense the raw power emanating from the stone. Be careful, Kurama cautioned as Naruto approached the display. That object, it's reacting to us specifically. Before Naruto could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed from a tunnel to his left. Instinct took over. Despite his weakened state, he moved with a shinobi's silence, concealing himself behind a stack of crates just as a figure entered the chamber. A young woman stepped into view, moving with cautious alertness. She wore civilian clothing, dark jeans, yellow shirt under a black leather jacket, but her posture betrayed combat training. Her brown hair fell in layers around a face set in determined lines as she scanned the chamber. Something low glinted on her wrist, a bracelet or watch that occasionally caught the light. Doctor. Oh, she called, her voice echoing slightly in the cavern. The energy spike came from down here. Are you? She stopped abruptly, attention fixing on the display case. The gem inside had begun to pulse more rapidly, its light intensifying with each beat. Naruto remained perfectly still, assessing. This wasn't an enemy, at least not obviously, but without knowing where he was or what was happening, caution seemed prudent. He watched as the woman approached the display case, communicating with someone through a device on her wrist. I'm in the lower excavation chamber, she said, voice lowered. The artifact's active. Like, seriously active. Did you authorize anyone to? The gemstone's pulsing reached a crescendo. Cracks appeared in the display case, spreading outward like frost across glass. The woman backed away, dropping into a defensive stance that Naruto recognized as a competent martial arts form. The case shattered. The gem hovered momentarily before launching itself directly toward Naruto. He reacted on pure instinct, rolling from his hiding place as the gem pursued him with unerring precision. The woman whirled toward the movement, eyes widening at his sudden appearance. Who the hell are you? She demanded, shifting to intercept him. No time to explain. The gem accelerated, and Naruto's depleted reflexes couldn't fully evade. It struck his chest, not as a physical impact, but as a merging, the stone sinking painlessly into his flesh like it was passing through water. Heat flared outward from the point of contact, spreading through his chakra network in pulsing waves. Naruto gasped, dropping to one knee as foreign energy coursed through him. It wasn't chakra, not exactly, but something adjacent to it, resonating with his own energy in harmonic patterns. Kit. Kurama's alarm echoed through their shared consciousness. It's binding to us, integrating with our chakra network. The woman approached cautiously, the device on her wrist now glowing yellow. I don't know who you are or how you got in here, but you picked the wrong artifact to steal. Naruto raised a hand in what he hoped was a universal gesture of non-aggression. Not stealing, he managed, the foreign energy making it difficult to focus. I don't even know where here is. She hesitated, studying him with narrowed eyes. You're in a restricted archaeological site in Reefside. How did you get past the security systems? Reefside. The word meant nothing to Naruto. What country is that in? Before she could answer, the ground trembled. Dust shook loose from the ceiling as a distant explosion reverberated through the cavern system. The woman's wrist device emitted a series of urgent tones. She glanced at it, then back to Naruto, indecision clear on her face. Another explosion, closer this time, forced her hand. "Stay put," she ordered, backing toward the tunnel entrance. "When I get back, you're going to explain exactly who you were and how you knew about the Draconite." "The what?" Naruto called after her, but she had already disappeared down the tunnel, moving with surprising speed. "We should follow her," Kurama suggested. "Whatever's happening might help us understand where, and when, we are." The fox had a point. Naruto rose unsteadily, the foreign energy, the Draconite, apparently, continuing to integrate with his system. Rather than fighting it, he attempted to harmonize his chakra with the new power, finding that acceptance eased the discomfort considerably. Following the woman's path, Naruto navigated a series of increasingly modern tunnels until natural stone gave way to concrete and metal. The sounds of conflict grew louder, impacts, energy, discharges unlike any jutsu he recognized, and the distinctive clash of hand-to-hand combat. He emerged from the tunnel into blinding daylight. Blinking rapidly, Naruto found himself at the base of a wooded hillside overlooking a clearing where battle raged. The woman he'd encountered underground fought alongside 3 others against a dozen reptilian humanoids whose scaled bodies seemed partially mechanical. What truly captured Naruto's attention, however, were the combatants themselves. All 4 fighters wore form-fitting armor in distinct colors: red, blue, yellow, and black, with helmets shaped to resemble stylized dinosaur heads. They moved with practiced coordination, wielding weapons that channeled energy in ways that reminded Naruto of chakra-enhanced tools. The yellow armored Ghter, presumably the woman he'd met, executed a flawless aerial combination, her movements enhanced by her suit's power. She landed beside the red armored fighter, who called out to the team. "Tyrannodrones on the left flank. Kira, Connor, pin them down. Ethan, with me." The tactical communication reminded Naruto of Chunin squad formations, though the fighting style relied more on individual power than the complementary techniques shinobi employed. A new figure emerged from the tree line opposite Naruto's position, a grotesque hybrid of human, dinosaur, and cybernetic components. Its presence caused an immediate shift in the battle's dynamics, the armored fighters adopting more defensive postures. "Rangers," the creature's voice grated like stone against metal, "how convenient that you've gathered to witness my triumph. The Draconite will soon be mine, and with it, the key to evolutionary perfection." The yellow fighter, Kira, responded with defiant bravado. "Sorry to disappoint, Mesogog. But your fossil collection isn't getting any bigger today." Mesogog's lipless mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. "My sensors detected its activation. The gem has chosen its bearer." His reptilian gaze swept the battlefield, eventually fixing directly on Naruto's position with unnerving accuracy. There, the Tyrannodrones immediately redirected their attack, a dozen scaled forms, charging toward Naruto with inhuman speed. "No," the red fighter shouted. "He's a civilian." Too late. The creatures closed in, their movements predictable to Naruto's experienced eye despite his unfamiliarity with their specific combat style. Weakened as he was, he retained the muscle memory and reflexes honed through years of life-or-death combat. The first Tyrannodrone lunged with extended claws. Naruto sidestepped, using the creature's momentum to throw it into a second attacker. A third swung a mechanical appendage toward his head. He ducked under it, delivering a precise strike to what he hoped was a vulnerable junction between organic and mechanical components. The creature staggered back, circuits sparking. Encouraged, Naruto adapted his taijutsu to target similar weak points in the others. Without access to his full chakra reserves, he relied on economy of movement and precision rather than overwhelming force. From the corner of his eye, he caught the armored fighters watching his defense with evident surprise. Even through their helmets, the red one recovered first, leading his team to intercept the remaining Tyrannodrones. "Whoever you are," he called as he fought his way toward Naruto, "you've got moves. But these things aren't normal opponents, they're genetically engineered soldiers." Naruto ducked a mechanical tail swipe, responding between movements. "Would it be the first time I've fought someone's science experiment?" The yellow fighter, Kira, reached them first, her daggers flashing as she dispatched a Tyrannodrome that had flanked Naruto. "You're the guy from the excavation site," she accused, voice altered slightly by her helmet. "How did you? Look out." Mesogog himself had entered the fray, moving with surprising speed for his bulky form. His clawed hand shot out, grasping Naruto by the throat and lifting him effortlessly. "The Draconite has chosen poorly," the creature hissed, reptilian face inches from Naruto's. "A mere human cannot possibly comprehend its power." Pain lanced through Naruto's body as Mesogog's touch seemed to interfere with the Draconite's integration. Through gritted teeth, he managed, "Not entirely human. Kit, the gem, it's responding to our chakra." Kurama's voice cut through the pain. "Channel what little we have left through it." Naruto focused on the foreign energy in his chest, directing his remaining chakra toward it instead of fighting its presence. The effect was instantaneous. Crimson light erupted from his body, forcing Mesogog to release him with a pained snarl. Landing in a crouch, Naruto felt the Draconite's power surge through his depleted chakra network, amplifying what little remained. It wasn't a full restoration, but it gave him options. Mesogog recovered quickly, signaling to his remaining forces. "Secure him. The Draconite must be extracted before it fully bonds." The armored fighters moved to intercept, but they were outnumbered and increasingly surrounded. Naruto assessed the situation with battlefield clarity. These people, whatever their powers, had tried to help him. Leaving them to face these odds went against everything he stood for. Drawing on the Draconite's power, Naruto formed a familiar hand sign. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. The technique drained him severely, but the Draconite's amplification allowed him to produce 5 solid clones, far fewer than his usual capacity. But enough to even the odds. His duplicates launched themselves into battle alongside the armored fighters, who visibly startled at their appearance. "What the?" the blue fighter exclaimed. He just duplicated himself. The black fighter, who moved with more experience than the others, adapted quickly. Questions later. Use the tactical advantage. Mesogog hissed in fury as his forces found themselves suddenly outmatched. "Retreat. We will require additional resources to capture this specimen." A shimmering green portal materialized behind the reptilian forces. They withdrew through it with military precision, Mesogog himself being the last to enter. Before stepping through, he fixed his gaze on Naruto. "Your power signature is anomalous. We will meet again, bearer of the Draconite." The portal closed with a sound like tearing fabric, leaving an abrupt silence in the clearing. Naruto recalled his remaining shadow clones, absorbing their experiences and energy as they dispersed. The Draconite's glow subsided to a faint crimson pulse visible through his tattered shirt. The armored fighters approached cautiously, the red one in the lead. With a gesture, their helmets dematerialized, revealing 4 young adults roughly Naruto's age. The yellow fighter was indeed the woman from the excavation site, her expression a complex mixture of suspicion and curiosity. "I'm Connor McKnight." The red fighter introduced himself, extending a hand cautiously. I've never seen fighting like that before. Or whatever that duplication technique was. Naruto accepted the handshake, noting the genuine strength behind it. "Naruto Uzumaki. And that was just basic shadow clone jutsu. I could usually make hundreds, but I'm not at full capacity right now." "Hundreds?" The blue fighter, a young man with dark skin and an intellectual bearing, looked skeptical. "That's not possible with any technology I'm familiar with." "It's not technology," Naruto replied simply. "It's chakra." The black fighter, older than the others, with short dark hair and watchful eyes, stepped forward. "I'm Drive, Tommy Oliver. This is Ethan James, Connor McKnight, and Kira Ford. We're the Power Rangers, protectors of this region. And you, apparently, have bonded with an artifact we've been studying for months." Kira crossed her arms, less welcoming than her teammates. "You still haven't explained how you got into a secured excavation site, or why the Draconite responded to you specifically." Naruto met her gaze directly. "I don't know why it chose me. As for how I got there." He paused, considering his options. These people had fought to protect him, but that didn't mean they would believe the truth. Still, lies would only complicate matters further. "I came through a dimensional rift," he stated finally. "I'm not from your world at all." Their reactions ranged from outright disbelief, Ethan, to cautious consideration, Tommy, to skepticism, Kira and Connor. That would explain the energy surge we detected, Tommy said thoughtfully. And your fighting style is unlike anything I've encountered in 15 years as a ranger. You're seriously considering this? Kira asked incredulously. He could be one of Mesogog's creations, designed to infiltrate us. If Mesogog created me, Naruto pointed out reasonably, why would he try to capture me? Connor nodded slowly. He's got a point. There's an easy way to verify at least part of his story, Tommy decided. The Draconite gem has resisted every attempt at analysis or bonding with potential rangers. If it truly chose him, there's a reason. Ethan studied Naruto with scientific curiosity. What exactly is chakra? Some kind of energy manipulation. Before Naruto could answer, the ground beneath them trembled. In the distance, explosions lit up the skyline of what appeared to be a city, a metropolis larger than any Naruto had seen, with structures of impossible height and design. The downtown sensor grid just went offline, Ethan reported, checking a device similar to Kira's. Massive energy signatures, similar to the one that brought him here, but smaller. Tommy's expression hardened. Looks like we'll have to continue this discussion later. Mesogog's opening more rifts. Rifts to where? Connor asked. If our guest is telling the truth, Tommy replied, potentially to his world. Or others. Naruto stepped forward. All help. Whatever's happening, I'm partially responsible. These rifts wouldn't exist if I hadn't come through. Kira shook her head. No offense, but you look ready to collapse. And we still don't know if we can trust you. You don't have to trust me, Naruto countered. But you do need me. I've sealed dimensional rifts before. It's why I ended up here in the first place. Tommy studied him for a long moment before nodding decisively. We'll take him to the lab. Haley needs to examine the Draconite's integration anyway, and if these rifts are connected to his arrival. His insight could be valuable. And if this is a trap, Kira pressed. Tommy's smile held little humor. Then he'll learn why challenging all 4 Dino Rangers on their home turf is a bad idea. The lab turned out to be hidden beneath Tommy's home, a command center of technological sophistication that would have impressed even the Research and Development Division of Konoha. Screens displayed real-time information about the disturbances occurring throughout the city, while equipment hummed with purpose Naruto couldn't begin to comprehend. A red-haired woman looked up from a central console as they entered, her expression shifting from relief to wariness when she spotted Naruto. I see you brought a guest, she remarked, attention quickly returning to her monitors. One who's radiating the same energy signature as our rifts, I might add. Haley, this is Naruto Uzumaki, Tommy introduced. Naruto, this is Dr. Haley Zichter, our technical support and resident genius. And the person who's been trying to analyze the Draconite for 6 months without success, Haley added pointedly. Which is now embedded in your chest, apparently. Naruto instinctively touched the spot where the gem had merged with him. Through his torn shirt, a faint crimson glow pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. I didn't ask for it, he said simply. Few people ask for power. Tommy remarked, in a tone suggesting personal experience. But the Dino gems choose their bearers for a reason. Haley approached with a handheld scanner, gesturing for pay. Our mission before running it over Naruto's chest. The integration is unlike anything I've seen with the other gems. It's not just bonded to your DNA, it's literally merged with your existing energy network. My chakra system, Naruto supplied. Where I come from, it's how we channel energy for ninjutsu, our techniques. You keep saying, where you come from, Connor interjected. So what, you're from another planet. Another dimension, Tommy corrected. The readings matched theoretical models for interdimensional transit. Which would explain why the Draconite responded to him, it's always had. Properties that suggested extra-dimensional origins. Kira, who had maintained a suspicious distance, finally joined the conversation. You said you've dealt with dimensional rifts before. How? Through sealing techniques, Fuinjutsu. Naruto explained. In my world, I'm what's called a Jinchuriki. I contain a tailed beast, an entity of pure chakra named Kurama. Together, we have enough power to manipulate dimensional boundaries under certain conditions. He deliberately omitted mention of his 6 paths powers or status as a reincarnation of Ashura, one impossible truth at a time seemed prudent. Ethan looked fascinated. A being of pure energy. Like some kind of sentient power source. I am not a battery, Kurama growled indignantly, though only Naruto could hear him. More like a partner, Naruto corrected with a faint smile. Though we didn't always get along. Haley's scanner emitted a series of tones as she passed it over different areas of Naruto's body. Your energy patterns are completely unlike anything in our database. There's your baseline signature, then a secondary pattern that must be this, Kurama, and now the Draconite energy integrating with both. A large screen displayed a visual representation of these energy patterns, swirling, interconnected streams of color that reminded Naruto of how chakra appeared to his sage mode perception. The rifts downtown have similar harmonic frequencies to your dimensional transition, Tommy observed, studying the data. But they're unstable, more like echoes than proper portals. Mesogog must be trying to replicate the conditions that brought him here, Haley concluded. If he succeeds, he could bring armies through from other dimensions, Connor finished grimly. Or worse. Naruto straightened, decision made. I need to see these rifts. If they're connected to my arrival, I might be able to stabilize or close them. You can barely stand, Kira pointed out, not unkindly despite her lingering suspicion. What happens if you collapse in the middle of downtown during an interdimensional crisis? The Draconite is still integrating, Haley added. Attempting to use its power prematurely LD be dangerous, for you and everyone around you. Tommy considered this, then turned to Naruto. What would you need to recover your strength more quickly? Time, primarily. Food helps. My metabolize. Burns through calories when recovering chakra. And meditation to balance my energy with Kurama's and now this Draconite. I can arrange the first two, Tommy decided. As for meditation, the base NT level below this one was designed for rangers to recover and center themselves. It has shielding against external energy signatures that might help you focus. Haley looked ready to object but reconsidered. The monitoring equipment down there could give us valuable data on how the Draconite integrates with his system. And if these rifts are connected to his arrival, understanding his energy signature is our best chance at containing them. The decision made, Tommy led Naruto to a small elevator concealed behind a dinosaur skeleton display. As they descended, Naruto felt the background was of the city's technological emissions fade, replaced by a subtle quietude that reminded him of sacred spaces in his own world. This place, he began, sensing something familiar beneath the technology, was built over a nexus of natural energy, Tommy confirmed. What some traditions might call ley lines or chi convergence points. It strengthens our connection to the morphing grid, the energy field that powers rangers. The elevator opened into a circular chamber with a sunken meditation area at its center. Unlike the technological complexity of the command center above, this space embraced minimalism, stone, wood, and water features creating an environment of natural harmony. I'll have food sent down, Tommy said, stepping back into the elevator. In the meantime, Haley will monitor your energy signatures from upstairs. If anything changes with the rifts, I'll help however I can, Naruto promised. Alone in the chamber, Naruto settled into a cross-legged position at the center of the space. The familiar posture brought immediate comfort, a small constant in a world of unknowns. Their energy system, this morphing grid, feels somewhat similar to nature energy, Kurama observed. Different frequency, but compatible principles. And the Draconite seems to bridge the gap between them, Naruto replied mentally. It resonates with both our chakra and this world's power. Which might explain why it chose you. Few others could survive having their chakra network reconfigured by foreign energy. Naruto closed his eyes, turning his attention inward to his mindscape. Usually, he would find himself standing before Kurama in a vast, flooded chamber, the manifestation of their shared consciousness. Instead, he encountered a landscape transformed. The chamber remained, but crystalline structures had begun growing from its walls and floor, formations that pulsed with the same crimson-gold light as the Draconite. At the center, Kurama lay curled in his usual position, but strands of this crystalline energy now wove through his chakra form like veins of precious metal through stone. Well, this is new, Naruto remarked, approaching his partner. Kurama opened one massive eye. The Draconite is reconfiguring our connection to accommodate its power. It's not malicious, more like adaptive. Naruto knelt beside one of the crystal formations, studying how it interfaced with the familiar chakra environment. Can you sense anything about its origins or purpose? Fragments, Kurama rumbled. It's ancient, possibly predating even the Sage of Six Paths. I sense a connection to creatures this world would call dragons, primordial entities related to both dinosaurs and Biju in different evolutionary branches. So it's alive, not precisely, more like programmed. It contains memory imprints from beings that wielded similar power. Knowledge that's beginning to integrate with our own. As if responding to Kurama's words, the Draconite's energy pulsed stronger. Information flooded Naruto's consciousness. Fragments of ancient battles, glimpses of colossal beings that seemed part dragon and part energy construct. Techniques for channeling power in ways that combined aspects of ninjutsu with this world's morphing capabilities. The stream of information overwhelmed him momentarily, forcing him back to physical awareness with a gasp. Opening his eyes, Naruto found Kira standing at the edge of the meditation area, a tray of food in her hands and concern momentarily overriding her suspicion. "You okay?" she asked, setting the tray down. "Your vitals just went haywire upstairs." Naruto took a steadying breath. "Information download, I think. The Draconite contains memories, or something like them." Kira's wariness returned, though tempered with curiosity. What kind of memories? Ancient beings, dragons, warriors who channeled their power. Naruto reached for the tray, suddenly aware of his hunger. "Thank you for this," she nodded, but made no move to leave as he began eating. The food was unfamiliar. Sandwiches with combinations of flavors he couldn't name, though his body welcomed the calories regardless. "Doctor O thinks you're telling the truth," Kira said finally, settling on the edge of the meditation area. "About being from another dimension." Naruto nodded, continuing to eat. "I'm not convinced," she admitted. "But that technique you used, creating duplicates of yourself, I've never seen anything like it. And I've seen a lot of weird things since becoming a ranger. It's a basic technique where I come from," Naruto explained between bites. "Academy students learn it, though usually they can only make illusions, not solid clones. And you said you can normally make hundreds." The skepticism in her voice was clear. Rather than argue, Naruto set down his food and formed a single hand sign. With his energy partially restored from eating, he managed to produce 10 shadow clones, each identical to himself. Standing in a semicircle around the meditation area, Kira jumped to her feet, instinctively reaching for her morpher before catching herself. "They're solid, not holograms. Completely physical copies. One clone confirmed, each with my consciousness and abilities," added another. "Though we share a chakra pool, so using techniques depletes the original's energy," a third explained. "Which is why they're useful for gathering information," a fourth continued. "When they disperse, I gain all their experiences and knowledge." Kira approached one cautiously, poking its shoulder with a finger. The clone grinned at her surprise when she met solid resistance. "That's actually incredible," she admitted. "The tactical applications alone, it's why I was a good reconnaissance specialist," Naruto said, dispelling the clones with a gesture. Each vanished in a small puff of smoke, their remaining energy returning to him. "And how I learned technique. UES that would normally take years to master in just weeks." Something in his tone made Kira look at him more carefully. "You're a soldier, aren't you? Not just someone with powers, but trained for combat." "Shinobi," Naruto corrected gently. "We're called shinobi, or ninja. And yes, I've been training since I was a child. My world wasn't always peaceful." "Wasn't?" A shadow crossed Naruto's features. "We'd just ended a global war when these dimensional disturbances began. I was trying to seal the breach to protect my world when I got pulled through instead." Understanding dawned in Kira's expression. "You were sacrificing yourself." Naruto shrugged, uncomfortable with the framing. "I was doing what needed to be done. My friend Sasuke could have made the same choice, but he has abilities our world needs more than mine. That's..." Kira seemed to struggle for words. "I'm not sure whether to call that noble or reckless." A genuine smile broke across Naruto's face, the first since his arrival. "Both, probably. I've been called worse," Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm from Kira's communicator. She activated it immediately. Go for Kira. The rifts are expanding. Tommy's voice came through clearly. We need everyone upstairs now. And Naruto, if you're feeling up to it, we could use your expertise. Kira looked to Naruto, who nodded and rose to his feet. His strength hadn't fully returned, but the food and meditation had helped considerably. More importantly, the Draconite had continued integrating with his chakra network, creating new pathways that felt increasingly natural. As they ascended in the elevator, Kira studied him with a thoughtfulness that replaced her earlier suspicion. For what it's worth, she said finally, I hope we can help you get home. Naruto appreciated the sentiment, though pragmatism tempered his response. First, let's make sure there's still a home to return to. If these rifts are connected to my dimension, anything that comes through could affect both our worlds. The elevator doors opened to reveal controlled chaos in the command center. New alerts flashed across multiple screens as Haley and Ethan worked frantically at separate stations. Tommy and Connor stood before the main display, studying a map of Reefside where multiple points glowed with warning indicators. The rifts have tripled in number, Tommy reported as they joined him. And they're becoming more stable. Objects are beginning to materialize from the other side. What kind of objects? Naruto asked, studying the display. Hey, Lei brought up video footage from downtown Reefside. Crystalline entities similar to those Naruto had fought in his world emerged from shimmering tears in reality, their faceted bodies refracting sun-light as they advanced through panicked crowds. They're not attacking. Not exactly, Ethan observed. More like searching. For me, Naruto concluded grimly. These are the same entities that invaded my world before I came through. They consume chakra, or any similar energy. Which explains why they're attracted to morphing grid hotspots, Haley said. The city's power grid is also being affected. These things absorb electricity too. Tommy turned to Naruto. You said you've sealed rifts before. With your current strength, could you close these? Naruto studied the data, considering. Not all at once, and not from here. I'd need to approach each rift individually and adapt the sealing technique to this world's energy patterns. Which would mean taking you into the field, Connor said. Exposing both you and the Draconite to potential capture. If Mesogog gets the Draconite and learns to control dimensional barriers, Ethan began. He could bring through anything, or send anything anywhere, Kira finished. Including his Tyrannodrones to other unsuspecting worlds. The implications hung heavily in the air. Naruto felt the Draconite pulse in response to his rising determination. Its energy synchronizing more completely with his chakra network. I think, he said slowly, the Draconite might offer another solution. All eyes turned to him as he stepped toward the center of the room. The gem's energy had been feeding him fragments of knowledge since its integration began, techniques and forms that combined aspects of his world's chakra manipulation with this world's morphing capabilities. The Draconite wasn't just a power source, Naruto explained, drawing on these implanted memories. It was part of an ancient system for maintaining dimensional boundaries, wielded by guardians who could sense and repair breaches between worlds. Like a dimensional immune system, Haley suggested, understanding dawning. Naruto nodded. And like any immune system, it needs to adapt to new threats. The crystalline entities that followed me here, they're like antibodies gone rogue, consuming the very energy they were meant to protect. So what are you suggesting? Tommy asked. Instead of answering directly, Naruto closed his eyes and focused on the Draconite's energy. Rather than fighting its foreign nature, he embraced it fully, allowing it to synchronize with his and Kurama's chakra in perfect harmony. The crimson glow intensified, spreading outward from his chest in patterns that resembled both chakra pathways and circuit designs. When he opened his eyes again, the other stepped back involuntarily. His irises had shifted from blue to a luminous crimson gold, concentric circles reminiscent of the Rinnegan but with a distinctly draconic vertical pupil. I'm suggesting, Naruto said, his voice overlaid with harmonic resonance, that we activate the Draconite's primary function. With practiced motion, though he'd never performed this specific sequence before, Naruto extended his right arm. The Draconite's energy coalesced around his wrist, forming what appeared to be a bracer of crystalline material that pulsed with internal light. Dragon Morpher, activate. Energy exploded outward, enveloping Naruto in a cocoon of crimson and gold light. Within this maelstrom, armor materialized, not like traditional shinobi gear, but something that combined elements of ancient draconic design with sleek, modern technology. Scales that were both organic and metallic formed protective layers over a bodysuit of crimson material, while gold trim accentuated the edges in patterns reminiscent of sealing formulas. The transformation completed with a helmet materializing around his head, its visor shaped like a dragon's maw, with glowing eyes that matched the color of the Draconite itself. As the light faded, Naruto stood transformed, the Dragon Ranger, a perfect fusion of shinobi, Jinchuriki, and this world's defender lineage. The Rangers stared in astonishment, Tommy being the first to recover. The sixth Dino gem. It wasn't just a power source, it was a dimensional guardian system. And it recognized Naruto as compatible because of his existing abilities, Haley added. Scanners already analyzing the transformation. His chakra network provides the perfect conduit for the Draconite's dimensional manipulation properties. Naruto examined his transformed state with equal fascination. The armor felt weightless yet incredibly strong, and he could sense his chakra flowing through it as naturally as through his own body. More importantly, he could perceive the dimensional disturbances throughout Reefside with perfect clarity, seeing not just their locations but the specific frequency patterns that would allow him to seal them. "I can fix this," he stated with quiet confidence. "But I'll need your help to contain the entities while I work on the rifts." Connor stepped forward, his own morpher at the ready. "Then let's do this. Rangers together." Hira moved to Naruto's side, the last of her suspicion replaced with professional respect. "Rangers together." Tommy nodded, pride evident in his expression as he observed this seamless integration of a new ally. Dino Thunder, power up. In flashes of colored light, the team transformed, red, blue, yellow, and black suits materializing alongside Naruto's crimson form. For a moment, he was reminded of formations with his own teammates, Sakura, Sasuke, Kakashi, but pushed the nostalgia aside. This new team needed him present and focused. "The largest rift is downtown," Tommy said, now fully morphed as the Black Ranger. "Haley can direct us to the others from here." Naruto nodded, newfound knowledge guiding his response. "The primary rift needs to be sealed first, the others are echoes that should collapse once the main breach is stabilized." "Then that's our target," Connor decided. "Raptor cycles." Tommy glanced at Naruto. The Draconite might have provided its own transportation method. Understanding immediately, Naruto reached out with his senses, connecting to the Draconite's deeper functions. In response, energy gathered at his mental command, coals, shing into a tangible form in the clearing outside. Through the command center's windows, they watched as crimson light materialized into a motorcycle unlike any in either world, sleek, draconic in design, with energy conduits that pulsed in rhythm with Naruto's own transformed power. The Dragon Rider, he named it instinctively, knowledge flowing from the Draconite's memory imprint. Ethan let out an appreciative whistle. "Now that's an entrance statement." Haley activated the command center's exterior door. "I'll monitor everything from here and coordinate with emergency services to keep civilians clear." "Good luck, Rangers." As they moved toward their vehicles, Kira fell into step beside Naruto. "Just so you know, dimensional warrior from another world or not, if you crash that bike on your first day, you'll never hear the end of it." The teasing broke the last of the tension between them, and Naruto found himself grinning behind his helmet. "I've ridden giant toads into battle. How different can a motorcycle be?" Her laughter followed him outside, where the Dragon Rider awaited its master, engines humming with otherworldly power. As Naruto mounted the vehicle, feeling it respond to his commands like an extension of himself, he found unexpected comfort in this strange new reality. He might be worlds away from home, wielding unfamiliar power alongside people he'd just met. But some things remained constant: the drive to protect, the fellowship of warriors with shared purpose, and his own unshakable determination to do what was right, whatever the cost. The Dragon Ringer and his new team roared toward Reefside's downtown, Dimensional Guardian and Defenders united against the breach between worlds. Downtown Reefside had transformed into a scene of controlled chaos. Police barricades attempted to contain panicked civilians while emergency response teams navigated streets littered with abandoned vehicles. Above it all, reality itself seemed to fracture. Massive rift hovering 30 feet above the central plaza, its edges crackling with energy that distorted the very air around it. Crystalline entities emerged in steady streams, their faceted bodies etching sunlight as they dispersed throughout the area. Unlike typical monsters, they showed no interest in destruction for its own sake, instead methodically absorbing energy from power lines, vehicles, and occasionally civilians who collapsed in their wake, drained but alive. The Rangers arrived at the perimeter, their distinctive vehicles drawing cheers from bystanders who recognized their protectors. Naruto followed on the Dragon Rider, its unique design and crimson coloration immediately capturing attention. "New Ranger," someone shouted as they dismounted. "As that dragon-themed," another called. Tommy addressed the gathered emergency responders, his authority evident despite his helmeted appearance. "We need this area evacuated to a 10-block radius. These entities drain energy. Keep everyone back." A police captain nodded. "We've established a perimeter, but we're having trouble with rubberneckers and social media streamers trying to get footage." "We'll handle containment," Connor assured him. "Focus on evacuation." Naruto studied the rift, his enhanced perception revealing patterns invisible to normal senses. Through the Draconite's power, he could see how this tier connected to his home dimension, a wavering, unstable bridge that nonetheless allowed matter and energy to transfer between worlds. "The entities are scouts," he explained to the team. "They're mapping this world's energy patterns, creating a foundation for something larger to cross over." "Mesogogue," Hira suggested. Naruto shook his head. "Something worse. These rifts were appearing in my world before I arrived here, part of a larger invasion. Then sealing this breach is priority 1, Tommy decided. "What do you need from us?" Naruto formulated a plan based on his shinobi training and the Draconite's knowledge. "I'll need to get directly beneath the rift to establish a counter-resonance. The entities will try to stop me once they sense what I'm doing. So we run interference," Connor concluded. "Classic protect the specialist formation. I'll need approximately 3 minutes of uninterrupted concentration," Naruto continued. "The sealing technique combines chakra manipulation with the Draconite's dimensional properties." Ethan studied the plaza layout. "We can create a perimeter around you, but those crystal things are everywhere. Then we thin their numbers first," Hira suggested. "Draw their attention away from the central plaza." Tommy nodded. "Connor, Ethan, West Quadrant. Hira and I will take East. Draw as many away as possible, then rendezvous at the plaza to protect Naruto while he works." The plan established, the Rangers deployed to their designated sectors. Naruto watched them move with practiced coordination, different from shinobi teamwork but effective in its own right. These people had clearly fought together before, their trust evident in how they complemented each other's movements without constant communication. As the team engaged the crystalline entities, Naruto prepared himself mentally for the sealing technique. The Draconite's knowledge filled gaps in his understanding of dimensional mechanics, while his experience with Fuinjutsu provided the framework for execution. Together, they created something new, a hybrid technique beyond either world's individual capabilities. From his position behind a concrete barricade, Naruto observed the Rangers' combat style. Connor relied on speed and direct strikes, his strength enhanced by his suit's power. Ethan employed defensive tactics, his armored forearms deflecting attacks while eating openings for precise counterstrikes. Tommy moved with experienced efficiency, each action economical and effective. Hira's approach particularly impressed him. Her sonic scream created area of effect disruption that temporarily destabilized the crystalline entities, making them vulnerable to conventional attacks. The technique reminded him of sound-based ninjutsu from his world. When the entities had been sufficiently thinned and dispersed, Tommy signaled the rendezvous. The Rangers converged on the central plaza, forming a protective formation around Naruto. "Now's your window," Connor called, deflecting a crystalline projectile. "We'll keep them off you." Naruto moved to the center point beneath the rift, feeling its distorted energy pulling at his own. The Draconite responded instinctively, crimson light intensifying around his armored form as he accessed both its power and his chakra simultaneously. Unlike traditional ninjutsu that relied on hand signs, this technique required a different approach. Naruto extended both arms toward the rift, palms upward as if supporting an invisible weight. The Draconite energy flowed outward in spiraling patterns, connecting with E-dimensional tear-like threads seeking to mend a torn fabric. Dimensional sealing art. Harmonic resonance restoration. Crimson energy erupted upward in a concentrated beam, striking the center of the rift. Rather than forcing it closed through brute power, the technique matched the rift's frequency patterns and gradually inverted them, like neutralizing a sound wave with its perfect opposite. The crystalline entities reacted immediately to this threat, abandoning their scattered activities to converge on Naruto's position. The Rangers intercepted them with coordinated precision, their pawns flashing as they maintained the protective perimeter. "Whatever you're doing is working," Ethan called. "The rift is contracting." Indeed, the dimensional tear had begun to shrink, its edges folding inward as the Draconite's energy rewove the fabric of space-time. The process demanded intense concentration. Naruto had to continuously adjust the technique's frequency to match the rift's changing properties. Like a locksmith manipulating tumblers in real time. 2 minutes, Tommy announced, dispatching 3 entities with a spinning kick. "We're holding, but more are coming. Kira's son." Icy scream repelled a wave of crystalline attackers, buying precious seconds. "They're getting more aggressive, like they know what we're doing." The observation proved accurate. The entities had begun coordinating their attacks, showing intelligence beyond mere programming. Several combined their forms into larger, more formidable configurations that pressed against the Rangers' defense with increasing effectiveness. Connor was the first to falter, a crystalline spear grazing his shoulder in a shower of sparks. "They're adapting to our attack patterns." Naruto maintained his focus on the sealing technique, but awareness of his teammates' struggle pulled at his attention. The shinobi in him rebelled against allowing others to fight while he remained stationary. Team protection had been ingrained in him since his earliest training. The Draconite responded to this instinct. Without interrupting the sealing beam, secondary energy tendrils extended outward from Naruto's form, draconic cons. Tructs of crimson light that intercepted attacks the Rangers couldn't block. The constructs resembled chakra arms in function but took forms inspired by dragon anatomy, claws, wings, and tails that moved with deadly precision. "Now that's multitasking," Ethan exclaimed, witnessing this display of simultaneous offense and sealing. The rift continued to contract, now barely half its original size. The dimensional frequencies stabilized as the Draconite's energy reinforced the natural boundary between worlds. Naruto pushed more power into the technique, drawing on Kurama's reserves as well as his own. "Almost there, Kit," the fox encouraged, the boundaries reforming according to its original pattern. A shadow fell across the plaza as a new portal opened, not a natural rift but a controlled gateway. Mesogog stepped through, flanked by what appeared to be elite tyrannodrones and a white-clad female figure whose armor resembled the Rangers but with distinct differences. "Elsa," Tommy identified, tension evident in his voice. "And Mesogog's personal guard," Connor added. This just got complicated. The reptilian figure surveyed the scene with calculating intelligence, his gaze fixing on Naruto and the nearly sealed rift. "The Draconite's guardian function," he observed, voice grating like metal on stone. "Unexpected, but ultimately futile. Elsa, acquire our prize." The white-armored woman advanced, drawing a sword that crackled with energy. "With pleasure, my lord." Tommy intercepted her, his own weapon materializing in a flash of black light. "The new guy's busy. You'll have to go through me first." "Always the hero, Oliver," Elsa sneered, their weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. "When will you learn that evolution cannot be stopped?" The elite tyrannodrones engaged the remaining Rangers, their enhanced capabilities forcing Connor, Ethan, and Kira into defensive positions. Despite the Dragon Rangers' energy constructs providing support, the team found themselves gradually pushed back from their protective formation around Naruto. Mesogog himself remained at a distance, studying the sealing process with scientific interest. "Fascinating. The dimensional frequency modulation is unlike anything in my database. Perhaps there are alternative methods to achieve my goals." The rift had contracted to a mere 10 feet in diameter, its energy stabilizing as the natural boundary reasserted itself. Naruto felt the technique reaching completion. Another 30 seconds would seal it permanently. Mesogog apparently reached the same conclusion. "Enough observation. Elsa, priority override." neutralize the sealing process. Disengaging from Tommy with a brutal counterattack that sent him staggering, Elsa redirected her assault toward Naruto. Her sword arced downward in a strike aimed not at him directly, but at the ground beneath him, targeting the plaza's structural integrity. The impact shattered concrete, destabilizing Naruto's position. His concentration wavered momentarily, enough for the sealing energy to fluctuate. The rift responded by pulsing violently, releasing a shockwave that knocked everyone in the plaza off their feet. Recovering instantly, Naruto reinforced the technique, pouring additional power into maintaining the nearly completed seal. The effort strained his still recovering reserves, but failure now would undo everything they'd accomplished. Need to maintain position, he grunted, the Draconite's armor absorbing feedback energy that would have incapacitated him otherwise. Hira was the first ranger back on her feet, her yellow suit scorched but intact. Seeing Naruto's predicament, she launched herself between him and a second strike from Elsa, her daggers catching the energy sword with precision. Finish it, she called over her shoulder, holding position despite being outmatched in raw strength. We've got you covered. The other rangers rallied, forming a tighter perimeter around Naruto despite their injuries. Their determination resonated with him deeply, reminiscent of how his own precious people had supported him during crucial moments. Drawing on this resonance, Naruto channeled a final surge of combined energy, his chakra, Kurama's power, and the Draconite's dimensional frequency, into the sealing technique. The rift contracted rapidly, its edges folding inward until they met at a single point of brilliant light. Seal. The light collapsed into itself with a sound like a thunderclap, leaving behind nothing but clear sky and dissipating energy. Sensors throughout the sea, Tai registered the simultaneous collapse of all secondary rifts, echo breaches that depended on the primary tear for stability. The crystalline entities froze momentarily, their programming disrupted. Why the sudden loss of connection to their source dimension? Then, one by one, they began to destabilize, fracturing into harmless fragments that dissolved into specks of light. Mesogog hissed in frustration, signaling retreat to his remaining forces. This is merely a temporary setback. The Draconite will be mine, as will its bearer. Not today, Scaly, Connor retorted, standing protectively. Eyed his teammates despite visible damage to his suit. With a final, measuring look at Naruto, Mesogog and his forces withdrew through their portal, which sealed behind them with a flash of green light. The plaza fell silent save for the distant wail of emergency vehicles and the settling of debris. Naruto released the Draconite's energy construct, feeling bone-deep exhaustion as the technique's toll caught up with him. He remained morphed, the armor's support systems helping him stay upright. Tommy approached, his own suit showing battle damage. That was impressive. Doesn't quite cover it. The rifts are closed, Naruto confirmed, checking the dimensional frequencies with his enhanced senses. The boundary between our worlds is stable again, for now. For now, Ethan questioned, joining them with a slight limp. Mesogog saw how the sealing technique works, Naruto explained. He'll try to replicate it, create controlled breaches instead of chaotic rifts. Which means this isn't over, Kira concluded. Completing their circle. Despite having taken the brunt of Elsa's assault while protecting Naruto, she stood tall, her posture betraying nothing of what must have been significant pain. Naruto nodded, respect for these warriors growing by the minute. No, but at least we've bought time. And, he hesitated, realizing a crucial implication of what had happened. I think I might be stuck here for a while. What do you mean? Connor asked. The sealing worked both ways, Naruto explained. It stabilized the boundary between dimensions, which means my own way home is sealed as well. Until we find another method, or until someone from my side manages to create a stable bridge. He let the implication hang in the air. The rangers exchanged glances, communicating silently in the way only a close-knit team could. Then I guess you're staying with us, Tommy decided. The Draconite chose you for a reason, and if Mesogog is pursuing interdimensional technology, we need your expertise. Plus, Kira added, a smile evident in her voice despite her helmet, the crimson look works with our aesthetic. We were missing that color in the spectrum. The simple acceptance, making him part of their team without hesitation or extensive debate, touched Naruto deeply. In that moment, despite the vast differences between their worlds, he felt a familiar sensation, the recognition of kindred spirits. Warriors who understood the weight of responsibility and the value of comradeship. "If you'll have me," he replied, "I'd be honored to fight alongside you until I find my way home." "Rangers together," Connor stated, extending his hand to the center of their circle. One by one, they placed their hands atop his, black, blue, yellow, and finally, crimson. "Rangers together," they echoed in unison, sealing a bond that transcended dimensional boundaries. As emergency services finally breached the perimeter and civilians began tentatively returning to the area, the 5 Rangers stood united against the setting sun, 4 defenders of Earth and 1 displaced guardian from another world, brought together by circumstance but united by shared purpose. The Dragon Ranger had found a new team, a new purpose, and perhaps, a new beginning. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Scales of Adaptation. Moonlight filtered through unfamiliar constellations, casting silver patterns across the forest clearing. Naruto sat cross-legged atop a boulder, eyes closed in meditation as he attempted to balance the competing energies within his system. 3 days had passed since sealing the dimensional rifts, yet his chakra remained volatile, surging unexpectedly before receding to troubling lows. The Draconite pulsed beneath his skin, its crimson glow occasionally visible through his borrowed t-shirt. Dr. Oliver had provided temporary accommodations in a guest cabin on his wooded property, close enough for monitoring, yet isolated enough for Naruto to train without disruption. "Your chakra pathways are still adapting," Kurama observed from their shared mindscape. "The Draconite's energy signature differs fundamentally from anything in our world." Not completely, Naruto replied mentally, focusing on a particularly unstable node near his solar plexus. Something about it feels ancestral, like it's connected to chakra's origins somehow. A twig snapped in the underbrush, instantly breaking his concentration. Years of battlefield awareness had him on his feet in a fluid motion, a kunai materializing in his hand from a storage seal on his wrist, one of the few functional ninja tools he'd managed to bring through the dimensional transition. "Whoa, just me." Hira emerged from the treeline, hands raised in mock surrender. She wore civilian clothes, ripped jeans, a yellow and black flannel over a band t-shirt, but Naruto noted the yellow bracelet that never left her wrist. "Dr. O sent me to check on you. You missed dinner." Naruto relaxed, the kunai vanishing back into its seal with a subtle flick of his wrist. "Sorry, lost track of time." Hira approached, her gaze drawn to the fading crimson glow beneath his shirt. "Still having integration issues?" "It's getting better," he half lied, not wanting to concern her. "Just different from the energy systems I'm used to." She didn't believe him. Her raised eyebrow made that clear, but she didn't press the issue. Instead, she handed him a paper bag that emitted tantalizing aromas. "Haley thought you might be hungry." She said something about accelerated metabolism and dimensional recalibration requiring calories. The thoughtfulness caught him off guard. Opening the bag revealed several foil-wrapped items that he'd learned were called burritos, a food concept that would have been revolutionary in Konoha. He unwrapped one gratefully, suddenly aware of his hunger. "Thanks," he said between bites. "Haley's analysis is probably right. I burned through a lot of energy during the sealing." Hira settled on a nearby rock, tucking one leg beneath her. In the 3 days since his arrival, she'd transitioned from suspicious observer to designated cultural interpreter, a role she approached with surprising patience. "So," she began, gesturing vaguely at his meditation spot, "is this how you usually recharge where you come from?" Naruto finished his first burrito before answering, already unwrapping a second. "Sometimes. Meditation helps balance chakra, but normally I'd recover faster. Everything here feels muted somehow. Like the natural energy is different." Haley mentioned something similar. "The morphing grid, our power source, operates on different frequencies than your chakra." She thinks the Draconite is trying to bridge the gap. The technical terminology still felt foreign to Naruto. Despite Tommy and Haley's patient explanations, this world's approach to power was fundamentally different, technology and dinosaur DNA rather than spiritual energy and hand signs. "What's it like?" he asked suddenly, "drawing power from this grid thing?" Hira considered the question, absently fingering her bracelet. "It's like tapping into something ancient and alive. Not conscious exactly, but aware." When I morph, it feels like connecting to something bigger than myself, something that's been waiting for me specifically. The description resonated with Naruto's own experiences. That's not so different from Sage Mode, connecting to natural energy. Though Ranger powers seem more structured. Structured is one word for it, Kira agreed with a wry smile. Regimented might be another. The power chooses you, but how you use it comes with rules and traditions stretching back thousands of years. We have those too, shinobi villages, techniques passed down through generations. A pang of homesickness caught him unexpectedly. My father was the fourth Hokage, our village leader. My techniques combine his legacy with my mother's chakra nature and Kurama's power. Kira's expression softened at the mention of family. You must miss them. They died the day I was born, Naruto replied matter-of-factly, having long since made peace with this reality. But yes, I miss my friends. My village. Knowing they're an entire dimension away. He trailed off, unwilling to complete the thought. The dimensional ceiling had been necessary, but it also severed his connection to everything and everyone he knew. Kira seemed to sense his discomfort, smoothly changing the subject. So, tomorrow Haley wants to run some tests on how the Draconite responds to different stimuli. After that, I thought maybe we could head into town. You can't keep wearing Tommy's hand-me-downs forever. Naruto glanced down at his borrowed clothes, cargo pants and a black t-shirt that hung loosely on his frame. Tommy was taller and broader than him, making the borrowed wardrobe somewhat impractical. I wouldn't want to impose more than I already have, he began, but Kira waved off his concern. Consider it a cultural exchange program. You learn about jeans and t-shirts. I learn about, what do you normally wear? Shinobi standard issue, mostly. Reinforced mesh armor under utility clothing. Orange and black were my colors. Kira's eyes lit with interest. Orange and black, bold combination. Though I guess I can't talk, given the whole Yellow Ranger aesthetic. It was my way of standing out, Naruto admitted. When I was younger, being noticed was important to me. And now, the question was casual, but perceptive. Naruto finished his second burrito, considering his answer. Now I don't need to announce my presence. People know when I'm there. It wasn't arrogance, just the reality of his status after the war. Kira studied him with renewed curiosity. You were important where you came from, weren't you? Not just a soldier. Naruto shrugged, uncomfortable with the implied status. I was just doing what needed to be done. Kira clearly didn't believe this modest assessment but didn't press further. Instead, she stood, brushing dirt from her jeans. Anyway, shopping tomorrow. Fair warning, I'm taking you to some places that might blow your interdimensional mind. Her dramatic delivery coaxed a genuine smile from him. I fought a goddess who could create dimensions. I think I can handle a, what did you call it? Mall. Oh, sweet summer ninja. Kira laughed, her eyes crinkling at the corners. The Reefside Mall on Saturday is its own special dimension of chaos. As she turned to leave, something impulsive, and very much like his younger self, prompted Naruto to call after her. Kira, she paused, glancing back over her shoulder. Yeah, thank you. He gestured vaguely, encompassing everything from the food to the conversation to simply treating him like a person rather than an interdimensional anomaly. Her expression softened momentarily before shifting to a teasing smirk. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you experience the food court. Long after she'd disappeared back toward the main house, Naruto remained in the clearing, the conversation having shifted something in his perspective. Since arriving in this dimension, he'd focused primarily on the technical challenges, managing the Draconite's integration, sealing rifts, understanding this world's power systems. What he hadn't fully considered was the cultural integration, the 100 small adaptations required to function in a society utterly unlike his own. Languages might translate mysteriously across dimensions, a phenomenon Haley was still investigating. But customs, technologies, and social norms didn't. With renewed determination, Naruto resumed his meditation. The Draconite responded to his shifted mindset, its RGY flowing more harmoniously through his chakra network. If he was going to be stranded here indefinitely, he would need to adapt, not just his powers, but his entire approach to existence. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled at the alien moon. Naruto opened his eyes, gazing upward at unfamiliar stars that somehow still felt eternal. Hold still, Haley instructed, adjusting a sensor array above Naruto's extended arm. The calibration is sensitive to movement. The command center beneath Tommy's house hummed with activity as multiple systems monitored the interaction between Naruto's chakra and the Draconite. Haley had transformed the central area into an impromptu research station, with screens displaying real-time data on energy fluctuations, molecular restructuring, and dimensional harmonics. Is all this really necessary? Naruto asked, trying not to fidget as electrodes attached to his temples picked up neural patterns. I feel fine. You're experiencing periodic energy surges that register on equipment designed to monitor tectonic activity, Haley replied dryly. And yesterday you accidentally created a shadow clone while sneezing. From across the room, Ethan suppressed a laugh. Man, I wish I'd seen that. The clone only existed for 3 seconds, Naruto muttered. And it was just the upper half of my body. Which is precisely my point, Haley continued, typing commands into her system. The Draconite is amplifying your abilities unpredictably. We need baseline measurements to develop stabilization protocols. Tommy entered from the elevator, carrying a stack of ancient-looking scrolls. Found these in the university archive. Predate the dinosaur extinction by several million years, but mentions of dragon guardians suggest possible connections to the Draconite. Haley accepted the scrolls with evident interest. The material composition analysis might give us comparison points for the Draconite's crystalline structure. While the two researchers became absorbed in their discussion, Naruto caught Ethan's sympathetic gaze. The Blue Ranger had been tasked with monitoring the tests, but clearly found the technical jargon as overwhelming as Naruto did. They get like this, Ethan explained in a stage whisper. Best to just let the science tsunami wash over you. Naruto nodded gratefully for the solidarity. In my world, this would be handled by SEAL masters or medical ninja. Less machinery, more intuitive diagnosis. Different approaches, same goal, Ethan observed. Though I bet your medical ninja didn't have spectrographic analysis. No, but they could literally see chakra flow with specialized eye techniques. This caught Ethan's full attention. Wait, like X-ray vision but for energy. That's straight up superhero territory. The Hyuga clan's Byakugan, Naruto confirmed. My friend Hinata could see chakra pathways, identify blockages, even target specific pressure points to disable opponents. The Chi would make medical diagnosis incredibly precise, Haley interjected, proving she'd been listening despite her apparent focus on the scrolls. No need for imaging technology if you can visually identify the problem. The conversation was interrupted as an alarm sounded from the main console. Tommy moved immediately to check the system, his relaxed demeanor shifting to alert professionalism. An identified energy signature at the quarry, he reported. Similar frequency to the dimensional rifts, but more contained. Haley brought the readings to the main screen. Too controlled to be a natural occurrence. Someone's deliberately manipulating dimensional energy. Mesogog, Ethan suggested, already moving toward his equipment locker. Different signature, Tommy replied, studying the data. This has none of his technological markers. It's pure somehow. Naruto felt the Draconite respond, pulsing beneath his skin with increased intensity. I recognize that pattern, he said, knowledge flowing instinctively from the gem's imprinted memories. It's a directed dimensional probe, someone scanning for something specific. Or someone, Haley added, glancing meaningfully at him. The frequency matches your arrival pattern. The implication hung in the air. Someone was looking for Naruto specifically. Connor and Kira are already in town, Tommy noted, checking their communicator status. I'll alert them to rendezvous at the quarry. Ethan, you and I will approach from the south access road. What about me? Naruto asked, already removing the monitoring electrodes. Tommy hesitated, clearly weighing security concerns against tactical advantages. Your powers are still unstable. But no one understands dimensional energy like he does, Haley finished. If this visitor is looking for him specifically, your team needs his insight. After a moment's consideration, Tommy nodded. Gear up, but stay on perimeter observation until we assess the situation. If your Draconite starts acting up, I'll pull back, Naruto promised, though they both recognized the unlikelihood of this happening in practice. Within minutes, the command center transitioned. From research facility to mission control, Haley established remote monitoring links while Tommy, Ethan, and Naruto prepared for field deployment. As they headed for the garage where their vehicles waited, Naruto felt something he hadn't experienced since arriving, the familiar pre-mission anticipation that had defined much of his life. Whatever awaited them at the quarry, it represented his Saint potential connection to home since sealing the rifts. The thought both exhilarated and terrified him. The reefside quarry sprawled across several acres of excavated limestone, a massive industrial scar on the otherwise forested landscape. Operations had ceased years earlier, leaving behind terraced stone walls, abandoned equipment, and a turquoise lake at its lowest level where groundwater had reclaimed the deepest pit. Naruto arrived on the Dragon Rider, the motorcycle responding to his commands with intuitive precision despite his limited experience with such vehicles. He positioned himself on an upper ridge overlooking the quarry floor, where a phenomenon unlike anything he'd seen in either world had manifested. A perfect sphere of swirling energy hovered 10 feet above the ground, its surface rippling with patterns that resembled galaxies in miniature. Unlike the chaotic rifts from days earlier, this construct maintained stable dimensional boundaries, a controlled window rather than a torn breach. Tommy and Ethan had already arrived in morphed form, maintaining a cautious distance as they analyzed the phenomenon. Connor and Kira joined them moments later, yellow and red suits gleaming in the afternoon sun. Through his communicator, Naruto heard their assessment. No hostile readings, Ethan reported. It's just sitting there. Scanning, Kira added, like it's looking for something. The Draconite pulsed suddenly, responding to the sphere's energy. Before Naruto could suppress the reaction, the gem emitted a brief crimson flash, invisible to normal perception, but apparently detectable to the sphere. The energy construct pulsed once, then expanded rapidly before contracting into a focused beam that struck the ground. Light coalesced, forming a humanoid silhouette that gradually solidified into a woman. Tall and athletic, with dark skin and braided hair pulled back in a practical style, she wore a uniform unlike anything Naruto had seen in this world. Black tactical gear accented with geometric patterns in yellow and silver. Most notably, she carried herself with the unmistakable bearing of a seasoned warrior. The Rangers immediately formed a defensive perimeter around her. Weapons materialized but not yet raised. Identify yourself, Tommy commanded, his stance betraying recognition despite his professional tone. The woman raised her hands in a non-threatening gesture. Her attention focused on Tommy specifically. Dr. Oliver, it's been a while. Tommy's posture shifted subtly. Rangers, stand down. I know her. His helmet dematerialized, revealing cautious relief. Tanya Sloan. Last I heard, you were with international relief efforts in Africa. That was my cover story, she replied with a slight smile. I've actually been with UNIT for the past 3 years, United Nations Intelligence Task Force. We monitor and respond to extraterrestrial and interdimensional threats. Like me, Naruto murmured to himself, understanding dawning. Despite his attempt at discretion, Tanya's gaze snapped immediately to his position on the ridge. Exactly like you, Naruto Uzumaki. Your arrival triggered every dimensional monitoring system on the planet. The casual use of his name sent a chill through him. How much did these people know? Deciding that concealment served no further purpose, Naruto descended from his observation point, using chakra to cushion his 30-foot jump to the quarry floor. The Rangers tensed momentarily at his sudden appearance, but relaxed at Tommy's subtle hand signal. How do you know who I am? Naruto asked directly, approaching the group but maintaining a respectful distance. Tanya studied him with analytical precision. 3 days ago, a dimensional incursion of unprecedented magnitude occurred in Reefside. Simultaneously, every mystic, alien, and interdimensional monitoring agency on Earth detected an energy signature previously unknown in our universe. Yesterday, our sensors record 5 individuals neutralizing secondary dimensional breaches throughout the city, 4 with registered Ranger energy signatures, and 1 with something entirely new. She gestured to the Draconite's glow visible beneath his shirt. That new signature matches readings we received 12 hours before your arrival, from a dimension that, until recently, we didn't know existed. The implications were staggering. You detected the battle in my world. The one that caused the initial breach. Not just detected it, Tanya corrected. We have limited observational capacity. Enough to know your name, your status as a Jinchuriki. And that you were attempting to seal an interdimensional incursion when you were pulled through. Connor whistled, his helmet dematerializing to reveal impressed surprise. You guys have been busy. That's literally our job, Tanya replied without heat. Dimensional incursions are UNIT's highest priority after extraterrestrial invasions. I was dispatched to ask whether you represent a threat or an opportunity. And which am I? Naruto asked quietly. Tanya's expression remained professionally neutral. That's what I'm here to determine. Unit Protocol R requires all dimensional visitors to be registered, monitored, and, if necessary, contained. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees as tension filled the air. Naruto felt the Rangers shift subtly, their positioning now placing them between him and Tanya rather than surrounding the newcomer. He's under Ranger protection, Tommy stated, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Any monitoring or registration happens with our oversight. Tanya raised an eyebrow. I expected nothing less from you, Tommy. Unit remembers how Ranger teams respond to perceived governmental overreach. Her expression softened marginally. I'm not here to drag anyone to a black site. I'm here because what happened 3 days ago has implications beyond Reefside. What kind of implications? Kira asked, her helmet vanishing to reveal suspicious eyes. The kind that involve multiple dimensions potentially collapsing into each other, Tanya replied grimly. The sealing technique you used stabilized the immediate breach. But our analysts detected continuing harmonic disturbances throughout the dimensional membrane. This aligned with what Naruto had sensed during the sealing, that the fix, while effective, addressed symptoms rather than the underlying cause. The entities that followed me through, he began, pieces connecting in his mind. They weren't just random invaders. They were symptoms of dimensional instability. Tanya nodded, approval flashing briefly across her features. Exactly. Something is systematically weakening the barriers between dimensions. Your world was affected first, then ours. If the pattern continues. Every dimension becomes vulnerable, Tommy concluded. Including those containing threats we can't even imagine. The gravity of the situation settled over the group. What had seemed like an isolated incident, Naruto's dimensional displacement and the subsequent rifts, was potentially part of a much larger crisis. I need to know everything about your world's encounter with these entities. Tanya said, addressing Naruto directly. And everything about how the Draconite responds to dimensional fluctuations. Before he could answer, the communicators on every Ranger's wrist activated simultaneously. Haley's voice came through with urgent clarity. Multiple hostiles detected approaching your position. Energy signatures match Tyrannodrones, but WITH significantly enhanced power readings. As if on cue, green portals materialized around the quarry perimeter. From each emerged modified Tyrannodrones, their usual organic-mechanical hybrid forms. Now augmented with crystalline growths that pulsed with familiar energy. They've integrated the dimensional entity's technology, Ethan observed, helmet rematerializing as he prepared for combat. Mesogog works fast, Connor added grimly, following suit. Tommy turned to Tanya. I assume Unit sent more than just you. A hint of a smile touched her lips as she tapped a communicator on her wrist. Extraction team, deploy. From behind the ridge, a sleek black aircraft appeared, previously cloaked by technology beyond even Ranger specifications. It hovered briefly before disgorging a dozen operatives in tactical gear similar to Tanya's, each armed with weapons that hummed with specialized energy. Dimensional containment units, she explained at Naruto's questioning look. Non-lethal UD effective against trans-dimensional entities. As the unit team established a perimeter, the Rangers morphed fully, Connor taking point as team leader. We've got the north and east approaches, he directed. Unit takes south and west. Naruto. I know. Naruto interrupted, the Draconite already pulsing in response to the threat. Stay out of sight until we know what they're after. But as he prepared to retreat to a better vantage point, a new portal opened directly before him, larger and more stable than those used by the Tyrannodrones. From it emerged a figure unlike the reptilian soldiers but equally unsettling. Humanoid in general shape but with proportions just wrong enough to signal non-human origin, the newcomer stood nearly 7 feet tall. Its body appeared composed of shifting metallic segments that occasionally revealed glimpses of crystalline structure beneath. Most distinctive was its face, or rather, the absence of one, replaced by a reflective surface that shimmered with iridescent patterns. Target acquired, it announced, its voice a modulated harmony rather than a single tone. Draconite bearer identified. Naruto felt the gem flare in recognition, not of the entity itself, but of its type. Knowledge from the Draconite's memory imprint flooded his consciousness. Dimensional mercenary, he stated, dropping into a defensive stance. Hired to retrieve specific artifacts across realities. The mercenary inclined its featureless head in acknowledgement. Perceptive. The Draconite's memory archive remains intact. Unfortunate, but manageable. Tommy signaled the Rangers to surround the intruder while unit forces engaged the Tyrannodrones at the perimeter. Who sent you? Clients maintain confidentiality, the mercenary replied, its attention never wavering from Naruto. My contract specifies retrieval of the Draconite gem and its current host, alive but not necessarily intact. The casual threat triggered an instinctive response. The Draconite pulsed, crimson energy spreading through Naruto's chakra network in harmonized patterns that felt increasingly natural. Unlike his earlier integration struggles, this power flow came smoothly, his body remembering the sensation from the previous transformation. Dragon Morpher, activate. Crimson light enveloped him as the Dragon Ranger armor materialized, scales and plates forming protective layers that moved with his body rather than restricting it. The transformation felt more controlled this time, each component integrating precisely with his chakra pathways. The mercenary observed this transformation with evident interest, its featureless face tilting slightly. Impressive adaptation rate. The Draconite chose well. Without warning, it launched forward with impossible speed, covering 20 meters in a heartbeat. Its arm extended, transforming mid-motion into a weapon resembling a vibrating blade. Naruto reacted on pure instinct, the Dragon Ranger armor enhancing his already formidable reflexes. He sidestepped the initial strike, countering with a palm thrust that connected solidly with the mercenary's chest. The impact should have sent any normal opponent flying. Instead, the mercenary's body rippled, absorbing and redistributing the kinetic energy before resolidifying. Conventional attacks are ineffective, it stated, almost apologetically. My composition adapts to all standard combat parameters. The Rangers joined the engagement, their weapons flashing as they executed coordinated strike patterns. Each attack met the same result. The mercenary's body simply absorbed or redirected the energy, rendering physical damage impossible. Ethan, Tommy called. Analysis. The Blue Ranger's visor glowed as he scanned their opponent. Its molecular structure is in constant flux, adapting to whatever frequency we attack with. We need to disrupt its ability to reconfigure. Tanya broke away from directing her unit team, joining the Rangers with her own weep. On drawn, a device that resembled a baton until it extended into a staff crackling with yellow energy. Former Ranger, Naruto asked, recognizing the familiar color and fighting style. Yellow Zio, she confirmed, striking at the mercenary with practiced precision. Before your time, her weapon seemed marginally more effective, causing the mercenary to shift backward to recalibrate. Interesting. Multi-phasic energy disruption. Adaptation required. While the mercenary focused on countering Tanya's attack pattern, Naruto accessed the Draconite's knowledge, searching for weaknesses in interdimensional entities. The information came in fragments, technical specifications and battle records from guardians who had faced similar threats. There, he thought, identifying a potential vulnerability. Its adaptive capabilities require a central frequency modulator, usually located in what would be the equivalent of a nervous system. Which would be where, exactly? Kurama questioned. It doesn't exactly have standard anatomy. The reflective face, Naruto realized. It's not decorative, it's a frequency receptor that processes external stimuli and directs adaptation. Armed with this insight, Naruto created a shadow clone, the technique coming more naturally through the Draconite's enhancement. While his duplicate joined the Rangers in their frontal assault, Naruto circled behind, gathering chakra and Draconite energy into his palm. The combined energies formed something between a Rasengan and the concentrated beam he'd used to seal the rifts, a spiraling sphere. Ray of Crimson Chakra that resonated at precisely the frequency needed to disrupt the mercenary's adaptation ability. Dragon Core Rasengan. He struck from behind, targeting the reflective face pane. L as the mercenary was occupied with multiple ranger attacks. The specialized technique connected solidly, its energy boring through adaptive defenses to strike the central modulator. The mercenary emitted a discordant sound, the closest it could come to a scream, as its body briefly destabilized. The reflective face cracked, revealing complex crystalline structures beneath that pulsed erratically. Unexpected, it managed, voice fluctuating through multiple harmonic patterns. Recalibration. Difficult. Tanya recognized the opening immediately. Now, combined strike while it's destabilized. The rangers channeled energy into their weapons, creating a synchronized attack pattern that struck from 5 directions simultaneously. The mercenary's damaged systems couldn't adapt quickly enough to the multiple energy frequencies. Its body began to collapse inward, the carefully maintained form dissolving into component particles. Before disintegrating completely, it fixed its damaged sensor array on Naruto. Contract remains. Others will come. The convergence approaches. With those cryptic words, the mercenary imploded, collapsing into a perfect sphere of condensed matter. Before vanishing in a flash of light that left only a scorch mark on the quarry floor. The Tyrannodrones, witnessing their allies' defeat, retreated through their portals, leaving unit forces secure. Ing the perimeter and collecting samples from the battlefield. Naruto demorphed, the Dragon Ranger armor receding into the Draconite as he approached the spot where the mercenary had vanished. What did it mean by the convergence? Tanya joined him, her expression grave. That's what I was trying to explain before we were interrupted. Unit scientists have detected a pattern of increasing dimensional resonance across multiple realities. They're calling it convergence theory, the idea that dimensional boundaries are systematically weakening toward some kind of collision point. Like universe-level tectonic plates shifting, Tommy suggested, demorphing alongside his team. More like universes that were never meant to touch being forcibly aligned, Tanya corrected. The consequences would be catastrophic, complete reality breakdown at the intersection points. Kira stepped forward, her earlier suspicion toward Tanya tempered by their shared battle. And you think Naruto's appearance is connected to this convergence? Not just connected, Tanya replied, studying Naruto with renewed interest. Potentially central to it. The Draconite's energy signature matches harmonic RNS our scientists identified at projected convergence points. It's not causing the phenomenon, but it's definitely responding to it. Naruto felt the weight of countless lives, across multiple dimensions, settling onto his shoulders. The familiar burden of responsibility, amplified beyond anything he'd previously faced. The mercenary knew about the convergence, he noted. Which means someone is actively exploiting the dimensional weakening, and hiring interdimensional bounty hunters to collect artifacts related to it, Ethan added. Like the Draconite, Connor, practical as always, focused on immediate concerns. So what's our next move? We can't just wait for more mercenaries to show up. We need more information, Tommy decided, turning to Tanya. What resources can UNIT provide? Full access to our dimensional research facilities, she replied without hesitation. And protection for Naruto. If mercenaries are targeting him, UNIT safehouse protocols would. No, Naruto interrupted firmly. I appreciate the offer, but separating me from the Rangers would just make both groups more vulnerable. We need to understand how the Draconite connects to Ranger powers in this morphing grid that happens at Drive. Oliver's facility, not a government bunker. Tanya assessed him carefully before nodding. I suspected you'd say that. Former Rangers rarely trust governmental oversight. She glanced at Tommy with a knowing look. Especially those mentored by certain individuals. Experience has taught us caution, Tommy replied diplomatically. Fair enough, Tanya conceded. Quote, I'll establish a UNIT liaison office in Reefside, close enough to provide support without stepping on Ranger autonomy. In the meantime, she removed a device from her tactical vest and offered it to Naruto. Smaller than a cell phone but more complex than any technology he'd seen in this world, it pulsed with subtle yellow energy. Communication link keyed to my personal frequency, she explained. If you sense dimensional disturbances or have more mercenary visitors, contact me directly. Some things shouldn't go through official channels. The distinction between Tanya as a unit agent and Tanya as a former ranger wasn't lost on anyone present. Tommy nodded appreciatively at this professional flexibility. As unit forces completed their evidence collection and prepared for extraction, he rangers regrouped near their vehicles. Naruto found himself standing between two worlds, the ranger team that had accepted him, and the governmental force that recognized the larger implications of his presence. Agent Sloan, he called as Tanya prepared to board her transport. You said you observed my world before I arrived. Did you see what happened after? The question contained everything he couldn't bring himself to ask directly. Were his friends alive? Had the ceiling worked from their side? Was Konoha safe? Tanya's expression softened with genuine compassion. Our observation window closed when you sealed the breach. But before it did, we saw a dark-haired young man with heterochromatic eyes containing the fallout. He seemed determined. Sasuke_. Relief flooded through Naruto. If anyone could manage the aftermath of his disappearance, it would be his oldest friend and rival. Thank you, he said simply. Tanya nodded in understanding before boarding her transport. The advanced aircraft shimmered briefly as cloaking technology re-engaged, then vanished from normal perception. As the Rangers prepared to return to the command center, Kira approached Naruto, concern evident in her expression. You okay? That was a lot to process. Naruto considered the question seriously. In the span of an hour, he'd learned that his dimensional displacement was potentially part of a multiverse-level crisis. That mercenaries were specifically targeting him, and that governmental agencies had been observing his home world. By any reasonable standard, he should be overwhelmed. Instead, he felt something unexpected, a sense of clarity and purpose. I'm better than okay, he replied, surprising both of them. For the first time since arriving, I understand why the Draconite chose me. This isn't random chance, it's connected to something bigger. Kira studied him with newfound understanding. You're used to this, aren't you? Being at the center of world-changing events. A rueful smile crossed his features. Let's just say it wouldn't be the first time I've had the fate of everything riding on my actions. Well, she said, bumping his shoulder lightly with her own. At least this time you've got a team of color-coded dinosaur warriors backing you up. That's new, right? The casual gesture of camaraderie, so reminiscent of how his friends in Konoha might have. Reassured him, brought unexpected warmth. Definitely new, he agreed. Though I once fought alongside a giant toad wearing a Yakuza jacket, so colorful allies aren't completely unfamiliar. Kira's startled laugh echoed across the quarry, drawing curious glances from the others. Okay, you absolutely have to tell that story on the way back. Giant Yakuza toad, that tops even Tommy's. I was once trapped in amber, tail. As they mounted their respective vehicles, Naruto felt something shifting in his perception of this new reality. What had initially seemed like exile was revealing itself to be something else entirely, a continuation of his path, just through unexpected territory. The Draconite pulsed gently beneath his skin, as if in agreement. Focus on the mental connection, Tommy instructed. His voice steady despite the strain evident in his posture. The Zord responds to intent more than conscious command. Naruto stood at the center of the command center's training area, eyes closed in concentration as he attempted to establish a psychic link with the Draconite's largest manifestation. On the monitoring screen, a massive mechanical form lay dormant in an underwater cavern, the Dragon Zord. Revealed by the Draconite's energy signature 3 days after the quarry incident. Unlike the other Rangers' Zords, which had been created through a combination of technology and dinosaur DNA, the Dragon Zord existed in a state between materialization and energy. It appeared mechanical but contained organic components that resembled both dinosaur and dragon anatomy, a hybrid creation that defied conventional classification. I can sense it, Naruto reported, the Draconite glowing as he extended his awareness. But it's like trying to talk to someone who speaks a different language. Let me try, Kurama suggested from their shared mindscape. Dragons and Biju share certain ancestral connections. Naruto surrendered partial control, allowing Kurama's consciousness to rise closer to the surface. The Draconite's glow intensified, shifting briefly to include hints of orange alongside the usual crimson. On the monitor, the dormant Zord responded, its eyes illuminating with matching light as systems began activating sequentially. Energy spike in the neural pathways, Haley reported from her console. The Zord is responding to a secondary consciousness signature. Kurama, I presume. He thinks there's a connection between tailed beasts and dragons, Naruto explained, maintaining the delicate balance between his consciousness and Kurama's own shared evolutionary or energy pattern. Tommy watched with analytical interest. It makes sense. Many Earth cultures have legends about dragon-like beings that embodied natural forces. They could be cultural memories of entities similar to your tailed beasts. Within the mental landscape where Naruto and Kurama communicated, the fox had extended his consciousness toward the dragon Zord's dormant mind. Unlike mechanical Zords that operated primarily through programmed responses, this one possessed a rudimentary awareness, a ghost of the ancient dragon whose essence had been incorporated into its creation. It recognizes me, Kurama reported with surprise. Or rather, it recognizes what I am. There's memory imprinted in its core, fragments of knowledge from before the Great Division. Great Division, Naruto questioned. When primordial energy being separated across dimensional boundaries. In your world, they became what you know as tailed beasts. In this world, they evolved into creatures this planet called dragons, then dinosaurs. This revelation aligned with information fragments Naruto had received from the Draconite, pieces of a cosmic puzzle slowly assembling into comprehensible patterns. On the monitor, the Dragon Zord had fully activated, its massive form rising from the underwater cavern in a surge of displaced water. Unlike the mechanical precision of other Zords, it moved with almost organic fluidity, scales shifting to accommodate movement, wings extending with membrane-like flexibility. Connection established, Haley confirmed. Neural synchronization at 78% and rising. That's higher than any of the other Rangers achieved on their first attempt. Tommy nodded approvingly. The Draconite's connection to both chakra and the morphing grid creates a natural interface. Naruto, try directing it to surface at the designated coordinates. Focusing on the mental link, Naruto projected the instruction, not as a command but as a shared intention. The Dragon Zord responded immediately, navigating underwater currents toward the isolated bay where Tommy had established a secure testing area. Through the connection, Naruto experienced a disorienting dual perspective, simultaneously present in the command center and seeing through the Zord's sensors. The sensation resembled shadow clone feedback but magnified exponentially. Neural synchronization at 85%, Haley reported. Approaching maximum theoretical threshold. Be careful, Kurama cautioned. Too complete a merge could blur the boundaries between your consciousness and the Zord's residual awareness. Heeding the warning, Naruto established mental partitions, techniques he developed during Sage training to maintain distinct awareness while processing multiple sensory inputs. The synchronization stabilized at 87%, creating optimal connection without risking identity blurring. The Dragon Zord surfaced precisely at the designated coordinates, water cascading from its massive form as it rose to full height, nearly 90 meters of armored draconic power. Through their connection, Naruto sensed its battle capabilities. Reinforced scales that could withstand conventional weapons, wing structures that generated energy shields, and a breath weapon that combined plasma generation with dimensional frequency manipulation. That, Tommy said with professional appreciation. As the most powerful Zord I've ever seen. Haley's analysis confirmed this assessment. Its offensive capabilities exceed even the Brachiozord, and its defensive systems incorporate technologies we've never encountered. The dimensional manipulation alone could. Her voice trailed off as alarms suddenly blared throughout the command center. Monitoring systems shifted focus from the Dragon Zord to multiple alert notifications appearing across displays. What's happening? Naruto asked, maintaining his connection to the Zord while returning full attention to the command center. Tommy moved quickly to the main console. Energy surged throughout the morphing grid. Something's causing system-wide disruption. Haley's fingers flew across controls as she isolated the disturbance source. It's coming from Naruto. Or rather, from the Draconite. The Zord activation has triggered some kind of feedback loop in the dimensional boundary layer. The Draconite pulsed painfully, orking Naruto to his knees as conflicting energies coursed through his system. The mental connection to the Dragon Zord fluctuated wildly, threatening to collapse entirely. "Shut it down," Tommy ordered. "Terminate the Zord connection." "I can't," Naruto gasped, struggling to maintain control. "The energies are synchronized now. Breaking the connection could damage the dimensional boundary further." Haley's analysis confirmed his instinctive understanding. He's right. The Draconite is acting as a stabilizing influence between dimensions. Severing the connection abruptly could trigger cascading failures across the morphing grid. Quote, "Tommy made the tactical decision immediately. Then we need to complete the integration properly. Naruto, you need to fully synchronize with both the Draconite and the Dragon Zord, establish a stable 3-point connection." Despite the risk, Naruto recognized the necessity. Drawing on years of experience balancing his own chakra with Kurama's and nature energy, he approached this new challenge methodically, identifying resonance patterns between his energy, the Draconite's dimensional frequency, and the Dragon Zord's ancient awareness. "I'll anchor your consciousness," Kurama offered, extending his chakra as a stabilizing influence. "Focus on harmonizing the external energies." With this internal support, Naruto established new connections, weaving the disparate energy systems into a balanced whole rather than forcing them to conform to a single pattern. The process resembled advanced fuinjutsu more than conventional chakra manipulation, requiring precise adjustments to energetic syntax rather than raw power control. Gradually, the alarms subsided as systems throughout the command center registered decreasing instability. The painful pulsing of the Draconite eased, replaced by steady warmth as it integrated more completely with Naruto's chakra network. "Dimensional boundary stabilizing," Haley reported with evident relief. Morphing grid fluctuations returning to normal parameters. Through the now stabilized connection, Naruto directed the Dragon Zord to power down into standby mode, maintaining minimal systems active. Without the energy demands of full operation. The massive construct settled into the bay waters, partially submerging as it entered conservation mode. As the crisis passed, Naruto released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That was intense and informative," Tommy added, studying the data collected during the incident. "The Draconite doesn't just allow you to access Ranger powers, it actively maintains dimensional stability. Your connection to the Dragon Zord isn't just a tactical asset, it's part of whatever system was designed to prevent the convergence Tanya mentioned." The implications settled heavily in the room. What had begun as a training exercise had revealed crucial information about both Naruto's role in the broader dimensional crisis. "So every time the Dragon Ranger powers are connect to the Zord," Naruto began, "you're helping maintain the boundaries between dimensions," Haley completed. "The Draconite chose you because your chakra system, especially with Kurama's influence, provides the perfect conduit for this function." Tommy's communicator activated before he could respond further. Connor's voice came through with unusual urgency. "Doctor, we've got a situation downtown. Mesogog sent something new, some kind of hybrid between Tyrannodrones and those crystal entities. They're targeting the Civic Center where Mayor Goodman is hosting the Regional Energy Summit." "Political or tactical target?" Tommy questioned immediately. "Both, looks like. The summit's showcasing new clean energy tech, but it's also got representatives from every major city in the region." Tommy's decision was immediate. "We're on our way, Naruto." "I'll join you," Naruto stated, already moving toward the equipment area where his gear was stored. "The Dragon Zord connection is stable now, and I need field testing anyway." Though concern briefly crossed Tommy's features, he nodded in acceptance. "Haley, monitor the dimensional boundary readings. If anything fluctuates beyond acceptable parameters, I'll let you know immediately," she promised. "And I'll alert Tanya's unit team as backup." As they prepared for deployment, Naruto felt the Draconite's energy flowing smoothly through his system, the earlier integration difficulties now resolved through the Dragon Zord connection. The gem had found its balance within his chakra network, eating a harmonious system that drew strength from both worlds' power sources. For the first time since his arrival, he felt truly whole, not just adapted, but enhanced by the fusion of ninja techniques and ranger powers. Whatever awaited them downtown, he faced it not as a displaced warrior struggling with foreign energy, but as the Dragon Ranger, guardian of dimensional boundaries and protector of his new team. The Dragon Rider's engine roared to life as they departed the command center, racing toward another battle in this world that was slowly, improbably, beginning to feel like home. Dreams had always been vivid for Naruto, a side effect of sharing consciousness with Kurama. Since bonding with the Draconite, however, they had taken on new dimensions of clarity and significance. Tonight, he found himself standing on a familiar cliff overlooking Konoha, the Hokage monument where his father's face was carved alongside the village's other leaders. But the perspective was wrong somehow, as if he were simultaneously present and viewing events from a great distance. The village below appeared intact but altered, construction visible in areas that had been damaged during the war. New buildings rising alongside familiar structures. People moved through streets illuminated by late afternoon sun, their daily activities continuing despite the absence of their war hero. "They're rebuilding well," a voice observed from behind him. Naruto turned to find Sasuke standing there, not quite solid, his form slightly translucent as if projected across vast distance. His mismatched eyes studied Naruto with characteristic intensity. "Is this real?" Naruto asked, instinctively understanding that this was neither conventional dream nor pure imagination. "A form of dimensional resonance," Sasuke replied. "Your consciousness reaching across the boundary you sealed, amplified by the Draconite's properties. I'm using the Rinnegan to stabilize the connection from this side." Hope surged through Naruto. "Then you found a way to reopen the portal." Sasuke's expression remained carefully neutral. "Not exactly. This is temporary, a momentary alignment of dimensional frequencies that allows limited communication. Opening a stable portal would require the Draconite on both sides," Naruto finished, understanding intuitively. "A matched pair to anchor the dimensional bridge." "Exactly. Dimensional travel requires corresponding anchor points, something your new allies should understand, given their technology." The casual reference to Naruto's situation confirmed what he had suspected. Sasuke could perceive aspects of his current circumstances through their tenuous connection. "How much can you see?" he asked. "Fragments. Enough to know you've found new comrades with their own power system." "Rangers, they call themselves." Naruto nodded, momentarily speechless at the surreal experience of discussing Power Rangers with Sasuke Uchiha. "The village," he finally managed, gesturing toward Konoha spread below them. "Recovering," Sasuke replied. "Kakashi has taken full Hokage duties. The interdimensional entities vanished when you sealed the breach, collapsed with their connection to whatever was controlling them." Relief washed through Naruto, followed immediately by a pang of homesickness so acute it manifested physically, the dreamscape briefly distorting around them. "Careful," Sasuke cautioned. "Emotional fluctuations destabilize the connection. This is already taxing my visual prowess significantly." With effort, Naruto steadied himself, focusing on practical matters rather than emotional responses. "Have you told them what happened to me?" "Those who need to know. Your disappearance has been attributed to an extended classified mission for now. Fewer questions that way." The pragmatic approach was quintessentially Sasuke, though Naruto could detect the underlying concern beneath his friend's controlled exterior. "The dimensional weakening that caused the initial breach," Naruto began, "it's happening across multiple realities. They're calling it the convergence. Here, a systematic collapse of boundaries between dimensions." Sasuke absorbed this information with a contemplative frown. "That aligns with what I've observed through the Rinnegan. The dimensional fabric shows strain patterns consistent with external manipulation rather than natural deterioration. Someone's causing this deliberately," Naruto concluded, the confirmation of his suspicions both validating and troubling. "Or something," Sasuke corrected. "The RGY signature resembles no jutsu or chakra pattern in our records, yet carries elements similar to Kagaya's dimensional abilities. The implication hung between them, another Otsutsuki-level threat, operating on a multiverse scale rather than targeting a single dimension." Before Naruto could respond, the dreamscape shuddered. Cracks appeared in the sky above Konoha, spreading like fractured glass as the dimensional resonance began breaking down. "We're out of time," Sasuke stated, his form becoming increasingly transparent. "The alignment is shifting." "Wait." Naruto reached toward his friend, desperation momentarily overriding rational thought. "How do I get back? How do we stop the convergence?" Sasuke's voice came as if from great distance, portions lost to dimensional static. Research in the Uzumaki Scrolls. Paired artifacts for dimensional travel, your mother's clan specialized in. His form dissolved into particles of light that scattered across the dreamscape. The village below followed, reality unraveling around Naruto until only darkness remained. He awoke with a gasp, sitting upright on the cot in Tommy's guest cabin. The Draconite pulsed with subdued crimson light, responding to his elevated heart rate and the lingering connection to his home dimension. You felt it too? Kurama questioned, fully alert despite the late hour. It wasn't just a dream, Naruto confirmed, pressing a hand against the Draconite. Sasuke established contact through some kind of dimensional resonance. The Rinnegan's visual prowess combined with his space-time manipulation, Kurama mused. Impressive, even for an Uchiha. The backhanded compliment brought a slight smile to Naruto's lips despite his disorientation. Some things remained constant across dimensions, including Kurama's reluctance to offer unqualified praise to anyone with Sharingan. Rising from the cot, Naruto moved to the cabin's small desk where he'd begun documenting everything he could remember about Uzumaki sealing techniques. If what Sasuke suggested was accurate, his mother's clan might hold the key to understanding dimensional travel, knowledge that could prove crucial to both returning home and addressing the convergence threat. The Draconite pulsed as he worked, occasionally feeding him fragments of information that complemented his recollections, as if the gem itself were helping construct connections between disparate knowledge systems. By dawn, he had filled several pages with theoretical frameworks combining Uzumaki Fuinjutsu principles with what he'd learned about the morphing grid and dimensional mechanics. The resulting hybrid theory remained incomplete, but pointed toward promising avenues for further research. A knock at the cabin door interrupted his work. Opening it revealed Kira, dressed for their planned excursion into Reefside, black jeans, yellow top, and a light jacket against the morning chill. Her expression shifted from casual greeting to concern as she took in his appearance. You look like you haven't slept, she observed, stepping inside without waiting for invitation. Her gaze fell on the papers covering his desk. Late night inspiration, something like that, Naruto replied, suddenly aware of his disheveled state. I had a dream about home. Except it wasn't entirely a dream. Kira's eyebrows rose as she picked up one of the diagrams, a representation of intersecting dimensional planes with annotations in both English and Shinobi script. Dimensional communication. My friend Sasuke established temporary contact through some kind of resonance between our dimensions. He confirmed what Tanya suggested. The convergence is deliberate, not natural. The implications registered immediately in Kira's expression. Someone is systematically weakening dimensional boundaries. Why would anyone? Power. Naruto interrupted grimly. Accessing multiple dimensions simultaneously would allow manipulation of fundamental reality principles. Imagine being able to selectively import advantageous laws of physics from one dimension while excluding limiting factors from another. Kira set down the diagram, processing this concept. Like a reality hacker, picking and choosing which universal constants apply to them. Exactly. It's what Kagaya attempted in my world, but on a multiverse scale. Well, that's terrifying, Kira stated with blunt honesty. And explains why interdimensional mercenaries are hunting Draconite artifacts. If they're tools for maintaining boundaries, they're also potentially tools for controlling how those boundaries interact, Naruto completed. In the right, or wrong, hands. They shared a moment of silence as the full implications settled between them. Finally, Kira gestured toward the cabin's small bathroom. Get cleaned up. We still have shopping to do, and apparently saving multiple dimensions requires proper wardrobe choices. The deliberate lightening of the MOD was exactly what Naruto needed, a reminder that even apocalyptic threats required balance with everyday life. With a grateful nod, he gathered fresh clothes from the limited selection Tommy had provided and headed to shower. 20 minutes later, feeling refreshed despite his sleepless night, Naruto emerged to find Kira examining his notes with scholarly interest. These sealing techniques, she said without looking up. They're similar to how Drive-O described ancient binding rituals used by the original Ranger tribes. Different symbols but comparable intent, creating boundaries that contain and direct energy. Naruto joined her at the desk, surprised by the observation. The underlying principles of energy manipulation might be universal across dimensions, just expressed through different cultural frameworks. Like how music follows mathematical patterns regardless of which culture creates it, Kira suggested, revealing the analytical mind behind her artistic exterior. Different instruments and scales, but the same harmonic relationships. The analogy resonated deeply with Naruto's emerging understanding of cross-dimensional power systems. That's actually brilliant. If we approach dimensional manipulation as a form of harmonics rather than brute force mechanics, we might find more elegant solutions than just throwing power at the problem, Kira finished, sharing his enthusiasm for the conceptual breakthrough. Their eyes met in a moment of perfect intellectual synchronicity, two people from utterly different backgrounds finding common understanding through abstract principles. Something shifted in that exchange, a subtle realignment in how they perceived each other. Kira broke the moment first, glancing at her watch with exaggerated concern. And now we're officially behind schedule. The mall awaits, interdimensional ninja, and not even the convergence gets between me and retail therapy. As they headed toward her car, a yellow Volkswagen Beetle that somehow perfectly matched its owner's personality, Naruto found himself appreciating the strange balance of his new existence. In the span of a single morning, he had communicated across dimensions, theorized about multiverse-level threats, and was now heading to something called a mall to acquire clothing appropriate for this world. The juxtaposition would have seemed absurd just weeks earlier. Now, it simply felt like his life, extraordinary and ordinary simultaneously, spanning dimensions while grounded in human connection. The Draconite pulsed gently beneath his skin, a reminder of both his responsibilities and the new bonds forming in this unexpected chapter of his journey. As Reefside passed by outside the car window, Naruto allowed himself to appreciate the small miracle of adaptation, the resilience that allowed him to find footing in alien terrain while maintaining the core of who he was. He was still Naruto Uzumaki, still a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf. But he was also becoming something new, the Dragon Ranger. Guardian of dimensional boundaries, protector of a world not his own but increasingly worth fighting for. The scales of adaptation had begun to balance. Chapter 2 End Chapter 3, Resonant Frequencies. Sunrise painted Reefside's coastline in watercolor hues of amber and rose, the ocean reflecting fractured light across its restless surface. 2 weeks had passé since Naruto's dimensional displacement, and with each dawn, the foreign sky felt incrementally more familiar. He stood at the water's edge, bare feet sinking into cool sand as he moved through the deliberate forms of a taijutsu kata, modified to incorporate the Draconite's energy patterns. The gem had settled into a symbiotic rhythm with his chakra system, pulses synchronizing with his heartbeat. Rather than fighting against his natural energy flow. Daily practice had transformed initial compatibility into harmonious integration, the crimson light now extending through his chakra pathways in predictable patterns. Your control has improved, Kurama observed from their shared mindscape. The energy no longer fluctuates during transitions. Naruto shifted from defensive posture to offensive strike, crimson energy briefly manifesting around his fist before reabsorbing into his system. It's becoming intuitive, like learning a dialect of a language I already speak. He calmly TED the sequence with a final form that combined chakra molding with the Draconite's dimensional properties, creating a momentary shimmer in the air around him as local space-time gently bent in response. The technique, still experimental, required precise control to avoid unintended dimensional weakening. Impressive, called a voice from the beach path. Most people need technology to manipulate localized dimensional boundaries. Naruto turned to find Haley approaching, carrying a tablet displaying complex energy readings. Her presence at this early hour suggested purpose rather than coincidence. Morning, he greeted, retrieving the light jacket he'd discarded earlier. The borrowed clothes had been replaced with his own wardrobe, simple but functional attire that balanced his shinobi preferences with this world's styles. Monitoring the practice session, the Draconite's energy fluctuations are more informative during active use, she confirmed, showing him the screen's scrolling data. We're creating baseline parameters for dimensional manipulation without destabilization. 2 weeks of working alongside Haley had taught Naruto to recognize her scientific curiosity as a form of camaraderie rather than clinical observation. Behind her professional demeanor lay genuine concern for both his well-being and the dimensional stability his presence affected. "Any anomalies?" he asked, falling into step beside her as they headed back toward Tommy's property. "Nothing concerning. Your chakra adaptation rate exceeds our most optimistic projections." A rare smile touched her features. "In layman's terms, you're a quick study. I've had practice adapting to new energy systems," Naruto replied, thinking of his journey from academy failure to sage mode master. "Though I've never had to adjust to an entire dimension's different physical laws before." Haley's expression shifted to one of scientific fascination, her equivalent of excitement. "That's precisely what I wanted to discuss. We've been analyzing the fundamental frequency differences between your home dimension and ours. There's a consistent variance of approximately 0.0047 Hz in how energy propagates through space-time." Naruto had learned to follow Haley's technical explanations by focusing on implications rather than terminology. "And that small difference affects how my chakra functions here." "Exactly. It's like trying to tune an instrument to a slightly different standard, A440 versus A442. Barely perceptible to casual listening but crucial for harmonic resonance." The musical analogy reminded him of Kira, who had used similar explanations when helping him understand this world's concepts. The thought brought an involuntary smile. Haley, missing nothing, noted his expression. "Speaking of harmonic resonance, Kira mentioned taking you to that new exhibit at the museum today. The one on ancient sound artifacts. If her band rehearsal finishes on time," Naruto confirmed. 2 weeks of cultural immersion had introduced him to concepts like indie rock and garage bands. Kira's musical world as foreign to him as chakra control was to her. They reached the main house, where the scent of coffee and breakfast greeted them. Tommy's sabbatical from university teaching had transformed his home into an informal command center, research materials sharing space with everyday domesticity. "You're just in time," Tommy called from the kitchen, where he stood monitoring both breakfast preparation and a video conference displayed on a wall-mounted screen. "Dr. Hartford has new information on those artifacts we discussed." Quote, on screen, a man with graying temples nodded in greeting. "Naruto, good to see you again. I've completed the comparative analysis of those energy signatures you transmitted." Another development of the past 2 weeks, introduction to the wider network of former Rangers and their allies. Dr. Andrew Hartford, mentor to the Operation Overdrive team, had Prov. N particularly valuable given his expertise in ancient artifacts and cross-cultural technological development. "What did you find?" Naruto asked, accepting a cup of tea from Tommy while Haley connected her tablet to the main system. Hartford's expression turned serious. "Confirmation of our suspicions. The dimensional resonance patterns in your chakra system match frequencies recorded in artifacts from 6 distinct ancient civilizations, all of which mysteriously disappeared from historical record approximately 10,000 years ago." Tommy placed a serving of breakfast foods on the table. Naruto had developed particular appreciation for pancakes and hash browns among this world's culinary offerings. The timing corresponds with the Great Cataclysm referenced in multiple Ranger legacy texts. "And with the separation of primordial energy beings in my world's creation myths," Naruto added, connecting disparate knowledge systems. "Kurama mentioned a great division when we established the Dragon-Zord connection." Hartford nodded. "Exactly. We're dealing with a multiverse-level event that created the current dimensional separation. These civilizations likely existed during a period when boundaries between realities were more permeable, which explains their advanced capabilities despite appearing in what we consider pre-technological eras," Haley concluded. "They weren't ahead of their time, they were drawing knowledge from multiple dimensional sources." The implications settled over the room. What historians had classified as separate ancient cultures might actually be fragments of a pan-dimensional civilization, scattered across realities when some cataclysmic event established the current multiverse structure. Hartford continued, "I've isolated reference patterns that suggest these cultures maintained stable transit between at least 7 distinct dimensional planes, including what we now call the morphing grid and what appears to correlate with your chakra system's fundamental frequency. Transit how? Naruto questioned, mind already connecting to Sasuke's dream message about paired artifacts. That's where it gets interesting, Hartford replied, transmitting new data to Tommy's system. They created resonance tools, artifacts specifically designed to match and manipulate dimensional frequencies. Think of them as tuning forks for reality itself. Tommy brought up the transmitted images on the main display, various archaeological artifacts from diverse cultures that shared subtle but unmistakable design elements. Despite their different materials and cultural aesthetics, each contained geometric patterns that would be immediately recognizable to any Fuinjutsu practitioner. These are sealing arrays, Naruto stated, recognition flooding through him. Simplified and adapted to different cultural contexts, but the fundamental structure is Uzumaki-style dimensional binding. Hartford's eyebrows rose. Your clan specialized in dimensional manipulation. Not exactly. We specialized in sealing techniques, containing, binding, and redirecting energy. But the underlying principles apply to dimensional boundaries because they're essentially energy differentials. The Draconite pulsed, responding to the images on screen. Knowledge fragments surfaced in Naruto's consciousness, connections between what he was seeing and information imprinted in the gem's memory. The Draconite recognizes these patterns, he said slowly, allowing the information to crystallize. It's resonating with them, like they're speaking the same mathematical language. Haley immediately began scanning the gem's reaction. Frequency response indicates recognition of specific harmonic relationships. It's like watching someone recognize a melody played in a different key. Which suggests the Draconite itself might be one of these resonance tools, Tommy concluded. Not just a power source like the other Dino gems, but a dimensional tuning device. The conversation might have continued in this technical direction had the command center's alert system not suddenly activated. Proximity sensors indicated an approaching vehicle, one not matching any registered ranger signature. Tommy checked the security feed, tension immediately evident in his posture. Unknown visitor. Black van, heavily customized. Energy readings suggest magical shielding. Magical, Naruto questioned, the term still feeling incongruous despite his expanding worldview. Different energy system than either ranger powers or your chakra, Haley explained briefly. Opera, Tays on principles similar to what your world might call natural energy, but with distinct manifestation properties. Tommy had already activated defensive protocols, transforming the seemingly ordinary home into a subtly fortified position. Haley, alert the team. Naruto, I sense it, Naruto confirmed, the Draconite responding to the approaching magical signature. Unlike the aggressive pulse it exhibited toward threats, this response felt more like recognition, a resonant hum rather than warning flare. Through the security feed, they watched as the black van parked at the property's perimeter. A single figure emerged, a young woman with short, dark hair styled with magenta highlights. Her casual attire, ripped jeans, graphic t-shirt beneath an open flannel, and combat boots, belied the purposeful confidence in her movements. Most notably, she carried what appeared to be a vinyl record in one hand, the disc occasionally catching sunlight with unnatural iridescence. I know her, Tommy said suddenly. Security stance relaxing marginally. Vita Raka, Mystic Force Pink Ranger. The name triggered recognition for Naruto as well, another from the expanding roster of ranger teams he'd been learning about. Mystic Force. They draw power from magical dimensions rather than the morphing grid, right? A specialized subset of the grid, Haley corrected, but yes, their power source. Manifests as what most would classify as magic. The question is, what brings a Mystic Force Ranger to Reefside unannounced? They got their answer when Vita reached the property boundary and held up the vinyl record. Rather than a normal music disc, its surface swirled with patterns that shifted independently of light angles, symbols flowing across its surface in constant motion. Dr. Oliver, she called, clearly aware of the surveillance. We need to talk about the dimensional anomalies your team's been generating. My tracking disc hasn't stopped spinning since that energy spike 2 weeks ago. Tommy exchanged glances with Haley and Naruto before making his decision. With a command to the security system, he deactivated the perimeter shields, allowing their unexpected visitor access to the main path. She's legitimate, he assured Naruto, noting his cautious stance. Mystic Force protected Briarwood from magical threats several years ago. If she's here tracking dimensional disturbances, then something about my presence is affecting magical frequencies as well as technological ones, Naruto concluded, the Draconite's continued resonant hum confirming the connection. Haley returned to her monitoring systems. I'll maintain observation from here. If her magical signature interacts with the Draconite in unexpected ways, we may need to implement containment protocols. Naruto followed Tommy outside to meet their visitor, curiosity outweighing caution. Each encounter with this world's power wielders had expanded his understanding of interdimensional mechanics. This promised similar insights from a magical perspective. Vita Raka approached with direct purpose, her gaze immediately fixing on Naruto with analytical intensity. You're the anomaly, she stated without preamble. Your energy signature is broadcasting across at least 3 magical frequencies. Not a question, but Naruto nodded confirmation regardless. Interdimensional displacement. I'm working with the Dino Thunder team while we address the resulting complications. She studied him more carefully, the tracking disc in her hand spinning faster as she approached. You're not just displaced. Your entire energy structure operates on principles that shouldn't function in this dimension at all. It's like watching someone breathe underwater without adaptive equipment. The assessment was surprisingly accurate. Tommy stepped forward, extending his hand in formal greeting. Vita, it's been a while. I take it the Mystic Realm has noticed our recent activities. Noticed is an understatement, she replied, accepting the handshake briefly. Every magical monitoring system in North America lit up like Times Square on New Year's. Claire's been having prophetic migraines, and Udana sent E to investigate after the 3rd crystal ball cracked from harmonic resonance. Names Naruto didn't recognize, but the implications were clear. His presence was affecting magical systems just as it had technological ones. Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside, Tommy suggested, gesturing toward the house. Haley's running analysis that might help explain the interference patterns. Vita nodded, but her attention remained primarily on Naruto as they walked. You have something embedded in your energy system, she observed. Something ancient that's trying to establish equilibrium between incompatible dimensional frequencies. The Draconite, Naruto confirmed, impressed by her perceptive abilities. A gem that responds to both chakra, my energy system, and this world's morphing grid. And apparently to magical frequencies as well, Vita added, holding up the tracking disc, which had begun emitting a faint pink glow in proximity to Naruto. This disc is calibrated to identify dimensional weak points. It shouldn't react to living beings at all, yet it's resonating with whatever's inside you. They entered the house, where Haley had already adjusted her monitoring systems to incorporate magical energy readings. The technical adaptation impressed Vita, who raised an eyebrow at the sophisticated equipment. You Dino Rangers certainly upgrade your tech regularly, she commented, placing her tracking disc on a sensor pad Haley indicated. Last time I worked with a tech wizard, we were still using crystal balls and enchanted wood. Different methodologies, compatible objectives. Haley replied diplomatically, establishing baseline readings from the magical artifact. Your tracking disc operates on principles surprisingly similar to our dimensional frequency analyzers. While the technical experts established communication protocols, Naruto observed Vita more carefully. Unlike the technological precision of the Dino Rangers or unit's military discipline, she carried herself with fluid confidence that reminded him more of experienced shinobi, someone comfortable with powers that defied conventional explanation. You said chakra earlier, she noted, returning his observational gaze with equal interest. As in the Sanskrit concept of life energy centers. Similar concept, different application, Naruto explained, having encountered this comparison before. In my dimension, chakra is the combinatory energy of physical and spiritual power, manipulated through specific techniques for various effects. Show me, she challenged directly, curiosity evident beneath her confident exterior. Tommy began to object. I'm not sure that's, but Naruto had already decided. Understanding required demonstration sometimes, and Vita's magical background suggested she could comprehend chakra principles more intuitively than most in this dimension. With practiced ease, he formed a simple hand sign, molding chakra into its most basic visible manifestation. Blue energy materialized around his hand, casting subtle illumination across his features. This is standard chakra manipulation, he explained as Vita leaned closer, studying the energy with fascination. The foundation for more complex techniques. Without warning, she extended her hand toward the energy, fingers stopping just short of contact. Pink sparks danced across her skin, responding to proximity with his chakra. It resonates with magical frequencies, she observed, genuine excitement breaking through her composed exterior. Similar harmonic structure but different foundational matrix. Like comparing jazz and classical music, different traditions interpreting similar tonal principles. The musical analogy struck Naruto with its familiarity. Hira said something similar when comparing chakra to the morphing grid. The Yellow Ranger, Vita asked, recognition flashing in her eyes. I've heard her band. Solid compositional structure with interesting harmonic progressions. Before this unexpected connection could be explored further, Haley interrupted with newfound urgency. You need to see this. The interaction between Naruto's chakra demonstration and Vita's magical signature is creating a harmonic pattern that matches frequencies from the artifact's drive. Hartford identified. On her display, waveforms intertwined in complex patterns that gradually synchronized into a single coherent frequency, one that appeared to stabilize rather than disrupt local dimensional boundaries. That shouldn't be possible, Tommy stated, studying the readings. These are fundamentally different energy systems from separate dimensional origins. Unless they weren't always separate, Vita suggested, the tracking disc on Haley's sensor pad now emitting steady pink illumination rather than erratic pulses. The Mystic Mother has ancient records suggesting all magical energies originally stemmed from a unified source, before what our texts call the Great Sundering. The Great Division, Naruto said immediately, remembering Kurama's words. When primordial energy being separated across dimensional boundaries. Vita's eyes widened with recognition. You know about the Sundering? Not exactly, but something similar happened in my world's history. Powerful entities that once existed together were separated across different dimensional planes. Tommy and Haley exchanged significant glances. Connections forming between previously separate research threads. If magical energy, chakra, and the morphing grid all originated from the same primordial source. Tommy began. Then they would maintain fundamental harmonic compatibility despite evolutionary divergence, Haley finished. Like biological species sharing ancestral DNA despite millions of years of separate development. The Draconite pulsed beneath Naruto's skin, responding to this conceptual breakthrough. Knowledge fragments from its memory imprint surfaced with new clarity, images of ancient civilizations manipulating multiple energy systems simultaneously through technologies that bridged dimensional boundaries. The Draconite was created during this unified period, he stated with sudden certainty. Before the separation. That's why it can interface with different dimensional energy systems. Vita's tracking disc lifted slightly from Haley's sensor pad, hovering an inch above the surface as it rotated with increased speed. Streams of pink energy extended from its circumference toward Naruto, connecting with the Draconite's crimson glow in an intricate pattern of interwoven light. It's establishing a harmonic bridge, Vita observed, professional fascination overriding any concern about the unexpected phenomenon. Synchronizing magical frequencies with your chakra system through the Draconite as intermediary. The connection continued for several seconds before resolving into a stable configuration, tendrils of pink and crimson energy maintaining contact while no longer actively fluctuating. Dimensional boundary stabilization increased by 17%, Haley reported, monitoring multiple systems simultaneously. Whatever just happened, it's actually reinforcing local space-time integrity rather than weakening it. Tommy studied the readings with cautious optimism. If the Draconite can establish similar harmonic relationships with other energy systems. Quote, it might be the key to addressing the convergence, Naruto completed, the gem's warmth suggesting agreement with this assessment. Vita retrieved her tracking disc, which had settled back onto the sensor pad after establishing stable connection. That's why I'm here. The mystic realm detected your arrival as a dimensional anomaly initially, but recent readings suggest you're actually functioning as a stabilizing influence despite being displaced from your native frequency. Which means, Tommy prompted. Which means, Vita continued, her expression shifting to businesslike determination. They've been authorized to offer Mystic Force resources to help understand and amplify this stabilizing effect. Starting with investigating magical frequency connection points in this region that might enhance the Draconite's dimensional reinforcement capabilities. You know of such locations near Reefside? Haley asked. Vita nodded, retrieving a folded map from her pocket and spreading it across the table. Unlike conventional cartography, this map shimmered with subtle magical indicators, locations marked by symbols that occasionally shifted position as if alive. Ley line convergence points, she explained, indicating several marked locations, natural channels where magical energy flows between dimensional boundaries. Most are dormant in technologically developed areas, but recent dimensional disturbances have reactivated several around Reefside. Tommy studied the map with academic interest, recognizing several locations. This matches patterns we've observed in morphing grid fluctuations, particularly this convergence point near the northwestern archaeological excavation. The one where the Draconite was discovered, Naruto added, the gem pulsing at the mention of its origin point. Vita's expression sharpened with interest. That site has been magically active for centuries. Most dismiss the legends as indigenous folklore, but Mystic Realm records identify it as a dimensional transit hub, a location where boundaries between realities were intentionally thinned for controlled passage. A prehistoric interdimensional airport, Haley translated with dry precision. Essentially, Vita agreed, if the Draconite originated there, it might contain access codes to whatever system once regulated transit between dimensions. The conversation paused as Tommy's communication system activated, Connor's voice coming through with characteristic directness. Doctor, we've got activity at the mall. Some kind of crystal formations growing out of the electronics store. They're drawing power from everything connected to the grid. The entities from my dimension, Naruto identified immediately. Or something derived from them. Mesogog must have adapted their technology. Tommy moved with practiced efficiency, activating command center protocols. Connor, maintain perimeter containment. We'll rendezvous in 10 minutes. Haley, already alerting Ethan and Kira, she confirmed. Fingers flying across her console. Vita pocketed her tracking disc, decision made without hesitation. I'm coming with you. If these entities have magical frequency components, MYSTIC force techniques might be effective against them. Tommy nodded acceptance. Interdimensional threats warranted combined ranger resources. Naruto. Dragon Riders already powered up, he confirmed. The Draconite responding to the impending conflict with steady crimson pulsing rather than erratic flares. 2 weeks of integration had transformed unpredictable power surges into controlled response patterns. Within minutes, they had deployed from Tommy's property, Naruto on the Dragon Rider, Tommy in his jeep with Vita following in her customized van. As they converged on Reefside Mall, Naruto felt the now familiar pre-battle focus settling over him, the clarity that came with purpose and imminent action. Yet beneath this familiar mindset lay something new, connections forming between chakra principles, ranger energy, and now magical frequencies. The Draconite's stabilizing influence extended beyond mere power control, suggesting possibilities for integration that transcended individual systems. The dimensional boundaries between worlds might be more permeable than anyone had realized, not weaknesses to be feared, but connections to be understood and properly maintained. Reefside Mall embodied controlled chaos on normal days, hundreds of shoppers navigating multi-level commercial spaces with single-minded consumerism that still occasionally overwhelmed Naruto's sensibilities. Today, panic had transformed this everyday mayhem into something more dangerous, civilians fleeing from the central atrium where crystalline structures erupted from electronic displays, growing geometric infections across modern technology. Connor had established an evacuation perimeter, his Red Ranger suit making him instantly recognizable to both civilians and emergency responders. Ethan maintained the opposite exit, blue armor reflecting chaotic light patterns from the crystalline growths. Naruto arrived first among the reinforcements, the Dragon Rider's specialized engine allowing greater speed through congested streets. He found Kira coordinating with mall security, her yellow suit distinctive against the building's neutral tones. Status, he asked, dismounting as his vehicle powered down to standby mode. Crystalline formations appeared approximately 20 minutes ago, she reported professionally, though Naruto detected underlying tension in her posture. Started in the electronics store, then spread through power lines to connected systems. They're consuming energy, both electrical and from the morphing grid. Casualties. Minor injuries during evacuation, nothing critical. But the crystal growth rate is accelerating. At current progression, they'll overrun the entire complex within an hour. Tommy and Vita arrived moments later, pulling up behind emergency vehicles that had established a secondary perimeter. Tommy immediately morphed into his Black Ranger form, while Vita approached the crystalline growths with analytical caution, her tracking disc held before her like a sensor. Definitely extra-dimensional, she confirmed, the disc spinning rapidly as it processed magical frequencies. But modified, hybridized with something local. The energy signature is corrupted somehow. Naruto felt the Draconite respond to the crystals, not with the recognition it had shown toward natural dimensional phenomena, but with something closer to rejection. The gem seemed to identify these growths as fundamentally wrong, violations of proper dimensional boundaries rather than natural manifestations. Mesogog's been experimenting, Tommy concluded grimly, combining the crystalline entity's technology with his own mutagenic processes. Hira noticed Vita for the first time, wariness immediately evident in her stance. Who's this? Vita Raka, Mystic Force Pink. Tommy introduced briefly. She's tracking magical disruptions connected to recent dimensional events. Before further explanation could be offered, Connor joined them, his helm dematerializing to reveal concerned features. The crystals are forming patterns now, not just random growth. Almost like circuit boards or transmission arrays. They're building something, Ethan added, completing their perimeter. Some kind of amplification system using the mall's power infrastructure as foundation. Naruto studied the crystalline pattern with experienced tactical assessment. The formations indeed suggested purpose rather than chaotic expansion, geometric configurations that reminded him of both ceiling arrays and technological schematics. They're creating a dimensional beacon, he realized. The Draconite's knowledge filling conceptual gaps, using local power sources to broadcast a signal across dimensional boundaries. Calling for reinforcements, Connor suggested grimly. Or reporting data collected about this world, Naruto countered. These entities function like an interdimensional surveillance system, gathering information about energy sources, technological capabilities, defensive resources. Quote, Vita's tracking disc emitted an urgent tone, its rotation accelerating dramatically. Whatever they're doing, it's causing significant magical frequency disruption. The dimensional boundary is thinning directly above the formation. All eyes turned upward toward the mall's central skylight, where subtle distortion had begun manifesting, light-bending Una. Truly as space-time fabric stretched toward breaking point. We need to neutralize the crystal array before it completes its transmission, Tommy decided, tactical assessment immediate and precise. Connor, Ethan, target the primary growth nodes at the electronics store. Hira, disrupt secondary formations with sonic attacks. Vita, I'll establish a magical containment perimeter, she supplied, already retrieving what appeared to be an ordinary wand from her jacket. When activated, however, it extended into a staff inscribed with arcane symbols. If the boundary ruptures, we'll need to limit contamination spread. Naruto and I will target the central transmission array, Tommy concluded. Dragon Ranger powers might be able to counteract the dimensional frequency. With assignments established, the team deployed with practiced efficiency, even Vita integrating smoothly into their tactical structure despite her different power system and background. Naruto activated his morpher, CR. Imson energy enveloping him as the Dragon Ranger armor materialized. The transformation came smoothly now, each component integrating with his chakra system in harmonic sequence rather than the Jaren G adaptation of his first morphing experiences. Dragon Ranger, ready, he confirmed, feeling the Draconite's power flow through specialized pathways in the armor, enhancing rather than replacing his natural abilities. The Rangers moved in coordinated assault formation, each targeting their designated section of the crystal network. Connor and Ethan engaged primary growth nodes with precision strikes, their weapons calibrated to disrupt the crystalline molecular structure without causing catastrophic energy release. Hira's contribution proved particularly effective, her sonic scream generating G harmonic frequencies that shattered secondary crystal formations without damaging the underlying mall infrastructure. The Yellow Ranger moved with practiced efficiency, her attacks precise despite the chaotic environment. Most impressive to Naruto was Vita's deployment of magical techniques, utterly foreign to his experience yet somehow resonant with chakra principles. Her staff channeled pink energy that manifested as animated musical notes, each tone establishing a section of containment barrier around the affected area. The barrier simultaneously prevented crystal expansion while reinforcing the weakened dimensional boundary above. Pink mystic force specializes in sonic manipulation, Tommy explained as they advanced toward the central array. Air element with harmonics is her particular focus. Similar to Kira's abilities, Naruto observed, noting how the two women's techniques created complementary effect patterns despite deriving from different power sources. Similar output, different mechanisms. Tommy confirmed. Ranger sonic powers utilize dinosaur-derived genetic capabilities channeled through the morphing grid. Mystic force techniques draw directly from elemental magical dimensions. They reached the central atrium where the primary crystal array had constructed itself into a towering spire of geometric precision. Unlike the chaotic growth patterns of peripheral formations, this structure displayed deliberate design, concentric rings of crystalline material surrounding a core that pulsed with energy drawn from the mall's electrical systems. The transmission focal point, Naruto identified. The Draconite providing technical understanding beyond his personal knowledge. It's establishing resonance with a corresponding receiver in another dimension. Tommy scanned the structure with his helmet's enhanced sensors. Energy buildup suggests transmission initiation in approximately 3 minutes. We need to disrupt the core without triggering catastrophic discharge. Naruto studied the crystal spire, recognizing patterns that resembled corrupted versions of sealing arrays he'd encountered in his world. The structural integrity depends on harmonic resonance between components. If we introduce counter-harmonic frequencies, we could trigger controlled collapse rather than explosive destruction, Tommy completed, understanding immediately. Quote, your Dragon Ranger powers can generate the necessary frequency modulation. Combined with your Brachio Staff's earth element properties, Naruto confirmed, tactical assessment flowing from both shinobi training and Draconite knowledge. Synchronized disruption from multiple vectors. They positioned themselves at optimal angles around the crystal spire, communicating their strategy to the team through their linked systems. Connor acknowledged from his position, coordinating the other Rangers to establish supporting formation once their primary objectives were complete. Ready on your mark, Tommy confirmed. His Brachio staff charged with black energy that contained the stability properties of earth element. Naruto channeled the Draconite's dimensional frequency manipulation capabilities. Crimson energy gathering around his armored form in precisely modulated patterns. Dragon harmonic disruption. The technique manifested as concentric waves of crimson energy that struck the cries. Tall spire at calculated intervals, each wave precisely calibrated to counteract specific frequency patterns in the crystalline structure. Simultaneously, Tommy unleashed earth element energy from the opposite vector, establishing grounding effect that prevented energy discharge from escaping control parameters. The crystal spire responded immediately, its structured geometry beginning to dissolve as harmonic integrity failed. Rather than explosive destruction, the formation underwent controlled deconstruction, component crystals separating from the main structure before dissolving into inert particles. It's working, Ethan called from his position, sensors confirming decreasing energy readings. The transmission array is collapsing. Kira and Connor moved to support the primary intervention, their weapons adding complementary frequencies that accelerated the deconstruction process. Vita maintained the containment barrier, preventing crystal fragments from establishing new growth patterns as the main structure failed. Victory seemed imminent as the central spire lost structural cohesion, its transmission capabilities critically compromised. The dimensional distortion above began to stabilize. Space-time fabric reknitting as the unnatural pressure eased. Then everything changed. The seemingly inert crystal fragments suddenly pulsed with renewed energy, not dissolving but figuring into a different pattern altogether. Where the transmission spire had stood, a new formation emerged, smaller but significantly more complex, its geometry suggesting defensive rather than communicative purpose. Adaptive reconfiguration. Vita identified first, her magical senses detecting the shift in fundamental frequency. It's changing function rather than failing. Before the Rangers could adjust their strategy, the crystal formation emitted a pulse of energy that temporarily disrupted both morphing grid connections and magical channeling. Tommy and the core team staggered as their suits flickered momentarily, power fluctuating under the targeted interference. Only Naruto remained unaffected, the Draconite's hybrid energy nature providing immunity to the specific disruption frequency. Recognizing the tactical advantage, he moved immediately to engage the reconfigured crystal structure while his teammates recovered. "Cover me," he called, channeling chakra through the Dragon Ranger armor in a technique that combined shinobi heritage with his new powers. Dragon Shadow Clone Formation. 5 perfect duplicates materialized alongside him, each Dragon Ranger copy containing a fraction of his power but sufficient for coordinated assault. The clones attacked from multiple vectors simultaneously, targeting structural vulnerabilities with precision strikes enhanced by the Draconite's dimensional energy. The crystal formation responded with unexpected defensive capabilities, generating projections that resembled the original crystalline entities from Naruto's dimension. These semi-autonomous constructs intercepted the shadow clones, engaging them in close-quarters combat that prevented direct access to the core structure. Kira recovered first among the temporarily disabled Rangers, her suit stabilizing as she adjusted her power frequency to compensate for the interference. Naruto. The formation is drawing power from secondary sources, emergency backup systems in the surrounding stores. This explained the crystal structure's continued functionality despite being disconnected from the main power grid. Naruto recalled his remaining shadow clones, absorbing their combat data while reassessing tactical options. "We need to sever all power connections simultaneously," he concluded. Physical and dimensional. Vita joined them, her magical barriers configured to new harmonic patterns that resisted the crystal's interference. "I can disrupt the magical frequency components, but only temporarily. These crystals adapt quickly to countermeasures." Tommy and the others had fully recovered, regrouping around the central formation with weapons ready. Synchronized multi-spectrum attack, the Black Ranger directed. Target all power conduits simultaneously. The strategy required perfect coordination, each ranger targeting specific energy channels while Vita's magic disrupted dimensional power sources and Naruto's Dragon Ranger abilities counteracted the crystal's adaptive capabilities. "On my mark," Tommy counted down. 3, 2, 1, execute. The combined attack struck with devastating precision, 5 rangers, 1 magical practitioner, and the Dragon Ranger unleashing specialized techniques in perfect harmonic synchronization. Power conduits severed under targeted strikes while magical barriers isolated the formation from dimensional energy sources. Naruto delivered the critical component, a modified sealing technique channeled through the Draconite that temporarily suspended the crystal structure's ability to adapt to changing conditions. Dimensional freeze seal. Crimson energy enveloped the formation in a complex pattern that resembled both Fuinjutsu script and circuit diagrams, a hybrid technique drawing from his native abilities and the Draconite's interdimensional properties. Without power or adaptive capability, the crystal structure destabilized rapidly, molecular bonds failing as component elements lost coherence. Within seconds, the entire formation collapsed into inert dust that possessed no more energy than ordinary sand. Dimensional boundary stabilizing, Vita confirmed, her tracking disk showing normalized readings as the unnatural distortion above dissipated completely. Containment holding on residual energy signatures. The Rangers maintained vigilance for several minutes, sensors monitoring for any sign of reactivation or secondary formation. When none manifested, Tommy finally gave the all-clear signal. "Good work, team," he acknowledged, his helmet dematerializing to reveal satisfied expression. Especially the cross-functional coordination. As emergency services secured the area and began cleanup operations, the Rangers gathered near the mall entrance to debrief. Naruto noticed Kira maintaining subtle distance from Vita, her posture suggesting professional courtesy overlaying personal reservation. "Your sonic disruption techniques were impressive," Vita offered, breaking the ice directly. "The harmonic progression you used against the secondary formations, perfect frequency selection." Kira's surprise at the specific technical compliment briefly overrode her wariness. "Thanks. I analyzed the crystalline resonance patterns from our previous encounters and identified vulnerable harmonic nodes." Music theory applied to interdimensional combat, Vita noted with appreciation. Reminds me of how I developed counter harmonics for spectral entities in the mystic realm. The technical exchange continued as they moved toward their vehicles, professional respect gradually easing initial tension. Naruto hung back with Tommy, observing this integration of different ranger methodologies with quiet satisfaction. They'll find common ground, Tommy noted, following Naruto's gaze. Rangers always do, regardless of team origin or power source. Like shinobi from different villages, Naruto agreed, remembering how the Fourth Shinobi War had forced historically adversarial ninja clans to find cooperation pathways. The common thread outweighs territorial instincts. Tommy's communicator activated before he could respond, Haley's voice coming through with urgent clarity. Tommy, I've analyzed the energy readings from the mall incident. The crystal formation wasn't just sending data, it was calibrating dimensional coordinates. Someone's trying to establish a stable transit vector between specific locations. Mesogog, Tommy questioned. Unlikely, Haley replied. The frequency patterns don't match his technology. This is someone with more sophisticated understanding of interdimensional mechanics. The implication settled heavily among the group. Another player had entered the game, one with knowledge beyond even Mesogog's considerable scientific capabilities. We need to examine the site where the Draconite was discovered, Naruto decided, the gem pulsing in agreement beneath his armor. If it was originally part of an interdimensional transit system, then whatever's happening now might be connected to its original purpose. Vita completed, her tracking disc already oriented toward the northwestern archaeological excavation. The magical frequency disruptions are strongest in that direction. Tommy made the tactical decision immediately. Connor, Ethan, coordinate with emergency services to complete site containment and evidence collection. Kira, Naruto, Vita, we'll investigate the archaeological site. Haley, already preparing remote monitoring equipment, she confirmed through the communication system. And they alerted Tanya's unit team about potential interdimensional activity at the excavation site. As they prepared to depart, Naruto noticed Kira's momentary hesitation, a brief flash of uncertainty as she glanced between him and Vita. The expression vanished quickly, replaced by professional focus, but its significance registered nonetheless. The interdimensional crisis was affecting more than Zhu's physical reality, it was creating unexpected relational dynamics as well. The northwestern archaeological excavation sprawled across several acres of forested hillside, a carefully structured DG site where modern scientific methodology met ancient mystery. 2 weeks earlier, this location had been Naruto's arrival point in this dimension, though he retained no memory of the specific underground chamber where the Draconite had first responded to his presence. University excavation equipment stood abandoned, work suspended after the dimensional disturbances began. Tommy had leveraged his academic credentials to secure access, allowing their investigation to proceed without institutional interference. The original discovery chamber is this way, he directed, leading them along a rain-forced tunnel that descended beneath ancient stone structures partially exposed by excavation. The Draconite was found in a sealed repository approximately 30 meters below surface level. Vita F. followed with her tracking disc extended before her, magical sensors processing information invisible to conventional perception. The magical frequency concentration increases dramatically as we descend. This entire site is saturated with residual interdimensional energy. Kira maintained professional alertness, her Terra grips ready as she secured their path. Despite the presumed archaeological focus, combat readiness remained standard procedure given recent experiences. Naruto felt the Draconite's response intensify as they descended, not the warning pulse of danger, but a resonant recognition of familiar environment. The gem seemed almost eager, its energy flowing through his system with increased harmony rather than resistance. It recognizes this place, he observed, following the subtle directional pull in the Draconite's energy. Like returning to a place of origin. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber where modern lighting illuminated walls covered in ancient inscriptions. Unlike the haphazard arrangement typical of archaeological sites, this chamber displayed deliberate preservation, its contents protected by both natural geological stability and what appeared to be intentional safeguards. The university team classified these as proto-writing from an unknown prehistoric culture, Tommy explained, indicating the intricate patterns covering vertical surfaces. Quote, carbon dating proved inconsistent. Samples from the same wall section returned results varying by thousands of years. Naruto approached the inscriptions, recognition flowing through him as the Draconite's knowledge merged with his Fuinjutsu training. These aren't just writing, they're dimensional stabilization seals. Advanced ones, incorporating elements from multiple systems. Vita confirmed this assessment, her magical senses detecting what archaeological methods had missed. Mystic realm records mention theoretical, anchoring chambers, that maintained stable transit between dimensional planes. This matches the descriptive fragments exactly. Hira studied the patterns with analytical precision, her musical background providing unexpected insight. They're arranged in harmonic progressions, like musical scales but expressed through spatial relationships rather than auditory ones. The observation proved critically important. Tommy's academic expertise connected this perspective with archaeological evidence. That explains the inconsistent dating. These inscriptions aren't static markings, they're dynamic energy conductors that periodically refresh their molecular structure through dimensional energy absorption. Naruto felt the Draconite guide his attention to a specific section of the chamber, an alcove partially obscured by collapsed stone but emitting subtle energy tracks detectable through his enhanced perception. That's where the Draconite was found. As they carefully cleared debris from the alcove, a recessed panel became visible, an array of crystalline structures arranged in geometric precision around a central depression exactly matching the Draconite's dimensions. Unlike the deteriorated state of surrounding architecture, this panel maintained pristine condition, its surface unmarred by the passage of millennia. A control interface, Vita identified, magical analysis confirming technological function beneath ceremonial appearance. The crystalline arrangement suggests frequency modulation capabilities far beyond contemporary magical understanding. Or technological understanding, Tommy added, examining the panel with professional appreciation. This displays engineering principles we've only theoretically explored in modern dimensional research. The central depression drew Naruto's attention most strongly, the Draconite pulsing in rhythmic patterns that suggested intended interaction. Without conscious decision, he found himself extending his hand toward the panel, the gem's energy reaching outward as if seeking completion of an interrupted circuit. Wait, Hira cautioned, combat wariness overriding archaeological curiosity. We don't know what activating that system might do. The Draconite's been separated from this interface for thousands of years. The energy differential could be catastrophic. The warning had merit, but Naruto felt certainty flowing from the Draconite, not reckless urgency but calm assurance of appropriate function. It's not activation I'm sensing, he explained, but recognition. The system wants to update its calibration against current dimensional frequencies. Vita's magical assessment supported this interpretation. The tracking disc shows harmonic convergence potential rather than disruptive interference. If this is indeed a dimensional stabilization system, synchronizing with current frequency patterns would strengthen boundaries rather than weaken them. Tommy made the tactical decision, balancing caution against necessity. Proceed, but maintain minimal energy transfer initially. We can gradually increase engagement if readings remain stable. With practiced control developed through 2 weeks of Draconite integration, Naruto established careful connection, extending just enough energy to establish communication with the ancient system without triggering full activation protocols. The gem responded with perfect harmony, its crimson light extending toward the panel in precisely modulated streams rather than uncontrolled flooding. The interface activated sequentially, crystalline components illuminating in spiral patterns that extended outward from the central depression. Rather than dramatic energy discharge, the system engaged with subtle elegance, each component calibrating to contemporary dimensional frequencies before establishing wider connections. It's scanning, Vita observed, her tracking disc recording the process with magical precision, mapping current dimensional boundary conditions against historical baseline parameters. Walls throughout the chamber responded to this activation, inscriptions illuminating with corresponding energy as dormant systems re-established operational status. The effect spread outward from their position, awakening interconnected components in cascading sequence. The entire site is a single integrated system, Tommy realized, academic understanding merging with ranger experience. Not just this chamber, but the complete archaeological complex. Kira maintained tactical vigilance while monitoring communication systems. Haley confirms energy signatures registering throughout the excavation perimeter. Non-threatening patterns but increasing in complexity. The Draconite completed its initial synchronization, the interface panel now fully illuminated with steady crimson light that matched the gem's harmonic frequency. Information flowed bidirectionally, the ancient system updating against contemporary parameters while the Draconite received historical baseline configurations. Knowledge flooded Naruto's consciousness as the gem processed this information exchange, fragments coalescing into coherent understanding of the system's original purpose and operational principles. It was a dimensional waypoint, he explained, translating technical concepts into comprehensible framework. Part of a network that maintained stable transit between 7 primary dimensional planes and numerous subdimensions. The Draconite functioned as both key and calibration tool, allowing authorized operators to navigate the network while ensuring boundary integrity. 7 primary dimensions, Vita repeated, consulting her tracking disk's historical database. That matches Mystic Realm records exactly the 7 fundamental planes of existence before the Great Sundering. Tommy connected this revelation with Ranger legacy knowledge, and aligns with morphing grid theoretical models of the pre-cataclysm multiversal structure. Before dimensional boundaries became relatively fixed and impermeable, the information exchange continued, revealing increasingly specific technical parameters that explained both the Draconite's capabilities and the Dragon Ranger powers it generated. The dragon designation wasn't arbitrary, Naruto noted, understanding the terminology's historical context. The original guardians who maintained dimensional boundaries were called dragons, entities who could exist simultaneously across multiple planes of reality. Like the legendary dragon fire in Mystic Realm texts, Vita confirmed. Not literal flame, but interdimensional energy that flowed between realities, maintaining balance and preventing collapse. Kira's analytical mind immediately grasped the strategic implications. So the Dragon Ranger powers aren't just another Ranger designation, they're the mode RN manifestation of these ancient guardians' abilities. Adapted to human physiological limitations, Tommy added, connecting historical function to contemporary manifestation. The original dragons were likely beings of pure interdimensional energy who could maintain full presence across multiple realities simultaneously. As the system completed its calibration sequence, the chamber's illumination stabilized into steady configuration, no longer the dramatic activation patterns but functional operational status. The Draconite maintained connection with the interface panel, continuing information exchange at sustainable energy levels. According to these readings, Vita reported, studying her tracking disk's analysis, the system is establishing real-time dimensional boundary monitoring across a 100-kilometer radius. It's actually reinforcing weak points automatically. Tommy confirmed this through communication with Haley. Morphing grid fluctuations are stabilizing throughout the region. Whatever this system is doing, it's having measurable positive effect on dimensional integrity. The tactical success should have brought unqualified satisfaction, yet Naruto detected underlying complication in the Draconite's information transfer. Certain data patterns suggested incomplete system functionality, critical components missing from optimal configuration. It's working, he acknowledged. But at reduced capacity, the interface panel references connected nodes that aren't responding to synchronization attempts. Vita consulted her magical readings, confirming this assessment. Only about 40% of the original system appears operational. The rest is either damaged or missing. Kira completed, tactical understanding immediate. If this was part of a network, there should be corresponding installations elsewhere. The interface panel provided confirmation of this hypothesis, displaying what appeared to be a geographic reference system, locations marked acros. Representations of both physical geography and dimensional topography. Most significant was a pattern of 7 primary nodes arranged in specific geometric relationship, with the current location presenting just one position in this configuration. Coordinates, Tommy identified, academic expertise translating ancient referencing systems to contemporary understanding. These mark the location of the complete network, 7 primary nodes positioned to create balanced dimensional resonance across the planet. Naruto studied the coordinate pattern, the Draconite providing translation between ancient and modern referencing systems. 6 additional locations besides this one, distributed across continental positions to establish global coverage, and likely containing additional components of the original system, Vita added. The implications immediately clear, including other Draconite equivalent artifacts. The strategic significance registered simultaneously for everyone present. If this single node could stabilize dimensional boundaries across a 100-kilometer radius, a fully operational global network might address the convergence threat entirely. We need to locate the other nodes, Tommy decided, already establishing communication with Haley to begin coordinate translation. If each contains artifacts similar to the Draconite, they might be exactly what the interdimensional mercenary was seeking. Naruto completed, remembering the entity's cryptic final words about others who would continue the contract, and what Mesogog hopes to acquire for his evolutionary plans. Hira summarized the tactical situation with characteristic precision. So we're in a multidimensional treasure hunt against unknown adversaries for artifacts that might save or destroy reality as we know it. Pretty much standard Ranger protocol, Tommy replied with the dry humor of a veteran. Though the interdimensional scale adds complexity. While this assessment proceeded, Naruto noticed Vita studying him with increased analytical interest, her magical perception detecting something beyond ordinary observation. The Draconite is changing you, she stated finally, directness overriding social convention. Not just your energy signature but your fundamental frequency. You're gradually harmonizing with this dimension's baseline parameters. The observation articulate, something Naruto had sensed but not fully acknowledged. Subtle shifts in how his chakra interacted with this reality's physical laws. What had initially required conscious adaptation now occurred with increasing naturalness. His energy system recalibrating to local dimensional constants. Is that dangerous? Hira asked, concern evident beneath professional demeanor. Not dangerous, Vita clarified, but significant. If his native dimensional frequency fully synchronizes with ours, returning to his original dimension would require similar readaptation process. The longer he remains here, the more this reality becomes my natural baseline, Naruto completed, understanding the implication. The Draconite wasn't just allowing him to function in this dimension, it was gradually making him belong here in fundamental energetic terms. The revelation carried profound personal significance beneath its technical parameters. Each day in this world rewrote his fundamental connection to his own dimension in subtle but cumulative ways. Eventually, he might become more native to this reality than to the one he'd left behind. Hira's expression revealed complex emotional response to this Poe's stability, concern mixed with something less readily identified. Before she could comment, however, the chamber's illumination pattern shifted abruptly, steady operational glow intensifying into urgent alert configuration. Dimensional disturbance detected, Tommy reported, checking his communicator as Haley transmitted real-time data. Major breach forming approximately 3 kilometers from our position. Vita consulted her tracking disk, which had begun spinning with increased urgency. Magical frequency disruption patterns match deliberate dimensional puncture rather than natural boundary failure. Someone's forcing their way through. The Draconite pulsed warning signals, not the recognition patterns of natural dimensional phenomena but alert response to hostile intrusion. Naruto felt the gem's energy shift to combat readiness, harmonic patterns reconfiguring for defensive application rather than calibration functions. We need to respond immediately, he stated, already moving toward the chamber exit. If someone's deliberately breaching dimensional boundaries while we've activated this system, they could be targeting the node itself, Tommy concluded, tactical assessment immediate. Using our activation as locational beacon, they moved with practiced urgency through the excavation tunnels, maintaining communication with Haley as she coordinated response logistics. Connor and Ethan were already en route from the mall site, while Tanya's unit team had deployed containment resources to the disturbance location. As they emerged from the underground complex, Naruto felt the dimensional breach's effect even before seeing its manifestation, distortion in local space-time creating subtle pressure differentials that affected both physical matter and energy flow. The Draconite responded with increased intensity, its protective functions activating automatically against potential boundary degradation. There, Hira identified, pointing toward the forested ridge, approximately 3 kilometers distant, where reality itself seemed to bend inward, light distorting around a focal point that pulsed with unnatural energy. Unlike the chaotic rifts from Naruto's AR Rival or the crystalline entity's attempted transmission portal, this breach displayed precise engineering, a controlled puncture through dimensional fabric rather than haphazard tearing. Whoever created it possessed sophisticated understanding of interdimensional mechanics. That's not Mesogog's technology, Tommy assessed immediately. The energy signature is completely different, more advanced but also older somehow. Ancient technology with contemporary application, Vita suggested, her tracking disc analyzing the breach's magical frequency components. Like someone found Operation Manuals for the original dimensional transit system. Before further analysis could proceed, the breach stabilized into defined portal configuration, a perfectly circular opening approximately 3 meters in diameter. Its circumference displaying complex energy patterns that maintained controlled dimensional interface rather than allowing chaotic interaction. From this engineered portal emerged a figure unlike anything they had encountered previously, humanoid in general structure but composed of flowing energy patterns contained within armor of unfamiliar design. The being stood approximately 7 feet tall, its form radiating power that registered across multiple frequency spectrums simultaneously. Dimensional Guardian located, it announced, voice resonating with harmonic overtones th. At suggested speech occurring across multiple realities concurrently. Draconite signature confirmed. Retrieval protocol initiated. The Draconite responded with immediate recognition, not of alliance but of opposition. Knowledge flooded Naruto's consciousness through the gem's memory imprint. This entity represented corrupted guardian lineage, former protectors who had abandoned balanced preserva. Tion in favor of controlled manipulation. Fallen guardian, he identified, the terminology flowing from knowledge beyond his personal experience. They were called the Vexari, guardians who sought to control dimensional boundaries rather than maintain them. The Vexari's attention fixed on Naruto with analytical precision. Designation accurate but incomplete. We are evolution's architects. Resha. Ping multiversal structure toward optimal configuration. Tommy had already morphed into Black Ranger form, tactical assessment translating immediately to response protocols. Whatever you're calling yourselves, breaching dimensional boundaries endangers countless lives across multiple realities. A perspective limited by temporal spatial constraint, the Vexari replied, dismissal evident despite its alien communication patterns. Multiversal reconfiguration requires transitional instability. Your concern for temporary disruption is noted but irrelevant to cosmic scale optimization. Vita established magical defensive positioning, her tracking disc reconfigured into combat mode, expanding into a circular shield inscribed with arcane symbols. Pretty words for someone tearing holes in reality. The Mystic Realm registered catastrophic pattern collapse projections from your optimization efforts. The Vexari seemed to consider this information momentarily before responding. Mystic P. Practitioners maintain outdated preservation protocols based on incomplete understanding. Your dimensional plane was scheduled for reconfiguration regardless of local resistance. This casual dismissal of an entire reality's existence confirmed the threat assessment. Hira completed their defensive formation, morphing into Yellow Ranger form with weapon ready. So you're basically interdimensional. Renovators who don't care about the current occupants, she summarized with characteristic directness. Cosmic level gentrification. The analogy might have seemed inappropriate given the stakes, it perfectly captured the Vexari's apparent philosophy, treating inhabited dimensions as resources for optimization rather than realities with intrinsic value. Naruto activated his morpher, the Drag. On Ranger transformation flowing through practice channels as crimson armor materialized around his form. The process completed with focused efficiency rather than dramatic energy expenditure, conserve. Asian protocols automatically engaging against potential extended conflict. Dragon Ranger, ready, he confirmed, feeling the Draconite's combat systems fully online, offensive capabilities balanced against dimensional stabilization functions to prevent collateral boundary damage during engagement. The Vexari observed this transformation with evident interest, its energy patterns shifting to analytical configuration. Fascinating adaptation. The Draconite has reconfigured to accommodate limited physiological parameters while maintaining core guardian functions. Inefficient but ingenious. Thanks for the performance review. Naruto replied, Tactical assessment ongoing beneath conversational response. Now explain why you're breaching dimensional boundaries and corrupting interdimensional entities for surveillance purposes. Preparatory analysis. The Vexari stated simply. Dimensional reconfiguration requires comprehensive baseline parameters. The crystalline proxies gather necessa. RI data while causing minimal disruption to scheduled optimization procedures. Tommy recognized the implications immediately. The crystal formations weren't random dimensional debris, they're your technology. Deliberately sent as reconnaissance. Correct. Though your dimension's technological guardian systems proved unexpectedly resilient. Adaptation was required. The casual confirmation of deliberate interdimensional interference eliminated any remaining doubt about the Vexari's threat classification. Tommy established tactical communication with approaching reinforcements, ensuring coordinated response once Connor and Ethan arrived with unit support. Whatever your optimization plans, he addressed the Vexari directly, this dimension remains under Ranger protection. We've defend it against threats from across the universe and beyond. Your protection parameters are acknowledged but ultimately irrelevant, the Vexari responded without apparent concern. Our interest lies pacifically with the Draconite and its current bearer. Surrender both, and your dimension's reconfiguration schedule can be adjusted to allow orderly transition rather than catastrophic restructuring. The terms, surrender Naruto and the Draconite or face accelerated dimensional destruction, clarified both the immediate threat and broader strategic situation. The Vexari sought the Draconite specifically, suggesting its importance to whatever optimization process they intended. Not happening, Kira responded immediately, her stance shifting to combat readiness. The Dragon Ranger stays with us. Vita added magical reinforcement to this refusal, her shield generating protective barrier frequencies that strengthened local dimensional boundaries. The Mystic Realm stands with the Rangers against interdimensional threats. Always has, always will. The Vexari's energy patterns shifted subtly, what might have been disappointment in a more human entity. Resistance was anticipated but unnecessary. The Draconite must be returned to the harmonic configuration for multiversal stabilization during optimization procedures. This reference to harmonic configuration triggered recognition T. Hero the Draconite's memory imprint, knowledge of the original 7 artifact system designed for dimensional boundary maintenance. The implications clarified immediately. The Vexari sought not just the Draconite but all 7 components of the ancient network. You don't want stability, Naruto challenged, understanding flowing from the gem's historical knowledge. The original harmonic configuration maintained dimensional separation. You want to reconfigure it for controlled collapse. Controlled convergence, the Vexari corrected. Separation was a temporary measure implemented during chaotic multiversal development. Evolutionary optimization now requires selective reintegration of compatible dimensional frequencies. Tommy connected this explanation to their earlier discoveries. Quote, the coordinates in the node chamber, they mark locations of the complete harmonic configuration. You're seeking all 7 artifacts. Correct. The Draconite represents one component of 7 required for optimal reconfiguration parameters. Its current bearer's dimensional displacement was unexpected but ultimately inconsequential to established protocols. This confirmation provided critical strategic intelligence. The Vexari's objectives aligned with the coordinate data they had just discovered, creating both threat and opportunity. If they could locate the remaining components before the Vexari, further tactical consideration became temporarily irrelevant as the Vexari apparently tired of negotiation. Without warning, it generated an energy construct resembling a staff composed of owing dimensional patterns, an implement that functioned as both weapon and reality manipulation tool. Retrieval protocol escalating to extraction phase, it announced, energy patterns shifting to combat configuration. Surrender is recommended to minimize physiological damage to current bearer. The attack came with devastating speed, the Vexari covering 30 meters in a fraction of a second. Its dimensional staff striking toward Naruto with precision targeting the Draconite's position. Only Dragon Ranger enhanced reflexes allowed effective evasion, Crimson Armor briefly phasing between dimensional frequencies to avoid direct impact. Tommy and Kira engaged immediately, their weapons striking from opposite vectors to divide the Vexari's attention. Despite their coordinate precision, THE entity demonstrated disturbing combat efficiency, its form shifting partially between dimensions to avoid solid contact while maintaining offensive pressure. Conventional attacks are ineffective, Tommy warned. His brachio staff passing through the Vexari's partially phased form. It's existing across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Vita's magical approach proved marginally more successful, her shield converting to offensive configuration as she channeled pink energy through musical manifestation patterns. Harmonic disruption might work, if it's maintaining multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. Targeted counter-harmonics could force single-plane manifestation. The theory had merit. Hera immediately adapted her approach, activating her suit's sonic capabilities to generate complementary frequency patterns, matching harmonic progression in 3, 2, 1. Their combined attack, magical harmonics and Ranger sonic technology operating in synchronized patterns, created momentary disruption in the Vexari's multi-dimensional manifestation. For approximately 2 seconds, it solidified fully into their dimensional plane, vulnerability evident in its fluctuating energy patterns. Naruto capitalized on this opening with practiced combat efficiency, the Dragon Ranger armor enhancing his natural speed as he struck with a technique that combined chakra prink impulse with the Draconite's dimensional properties. Dragon Impact Strike. The technique connected solidly, crimson energy disrupting the Vexari's cohesion as physical force transferred through temporarily normalized dimensional state. The entity staggered backward, its form briefly destabilizing before reconfiguring with altered parameters. Unexpected harmonic manipulation capabilities, it acknowledged. Genuine surprise evident in its communication patterns. Adaptation required. Before this adaptation could complete, reinforcements arrived, Connor and Ethan in morphed form, accompanied by Tanya leading a unit tactical team equipped with specialized dimensional containment technology. Their coordinated arrival forced the Vexari to reassess tactical options, now facing significantly expanded opposition. Retrieval parameters compromised, it concluded after brief analysis. Strategic withdrawal and protocol reassessment indicated. Rather than immediately retreating, however, it executed unexpected tactical maneuver, generating energy construct that expanded outward in spherical pattern. Unlike offensive application, this technique manifested as information gathering system, scanning the assembled defenders with particular focus on the activated node chamber behind them. Harmonic configuration coordinates acquired, the Vexari announced with what might have been satisfaction. Primary objective achieved despite retrieval failure. The implication registered immediately. It had obtained the coordinate data they had just discovered, potentially compromising all remaining artifact locations before they could secure them. Stop it, Naruto called, channeling the Draconite's energy into countermeasure technique. Dragon Sealing Barrier. Crimson energy extended outward in precisely configured patterns, establishing dimensional frequency barrier designed to prevent information transfer across reality boundaries. The technique engaged just as the Vexari attempted to transmit its acquired data through the portal. For crucial seconds, opposing energies contested the Vexari's transmission protocols against Naruto's sealing barrier. The Draconite's capabilities proved partially effective, disrupting complete data transfer but failing to prevent all information transmission. Partial coordinates secured, the Vexari assessed, its energy patterns reconfiguring for retreat. Sufficient for preliminary location parameters. Optimization protocols proceeding according to adjusted timeline. Before further intervention could prevent its withdrawal, the entity retreated through its dimensional portal, the precisely engineered opening closing behind it with controlled destabilization rather than catastrophic collapse. Unlike natural rifts that required active sealing, this portal dissipated through programmed sequence, leaving minimal dimensional residue. Dimensional boundary integrity holding, Vita confirmed, her tracking disk analyzing residual energy patterns. The portal was designed to close cleanly without structural damage. Advanced engineering. Tanya approached from the unit perimeter, her tactical assessment immediate and precise. We registered 7 distinct dimensional frequencies during that encounter, all manipulated simultaneously by a single entity. That's beyond any capability we've documented previously. Tommy demorphed. The immediate threat neutralized despite strategic complications. It called itself Vexari, apparently former dimensional guardians who decided to optimize the multiverse rather than preserve it. Quote, And now they have partial coordinates for artifacts similar to the Draconite, Naruto added, his transformation receding as combat systems powered down to conservation mode. Though I managed to disrupt complete data transmission. Kira summarized the tactical situation with characteristic directness. So we're officially in a race to find these artifacts before interdimensional renovators use TM to optimize our reality out of existence. Pretty much, Connor confirmed, having received abbreviated briefing during his approach. Though multidimensional treasure hunts beat finals week for excitement value, the attempt at humor masked genuine concern shared by everyone present. The encounter had confirmed both the Vexari's capabilities and their intentions, systematic reconfiguration of dimensional boundaries with apparent disregard for inhabitants' continued existence. Tanya established immediate communication with unit headquarters, strategic response already formulating. Well, I'll need international cooperation for artifact location and recovery. These coordinates span global positions across multiple jurisdictions and multiple dimensional frequencies, Vita added, console. Ting her tracking disk's analysis of partial data captured during the encounter. The artifacts exist simultaneously across dimensional boundaries, physical components in our world connected to corresponding manifestations in adjacent realities. This complexity explained why the artifacts hadn't been discovered through conventional archaeological methods, their multidimensional nature rendering TM partially imperceptible to single-plane observation techniques. The Draconite was only discovered because dimensional thinning in this region allowed its physical manifestation to stabilize in our reality, Tommy theorized. Connecting archaeological data with current understanding. Similar conditions might be required to locate the others. Naruto felt the Draconite pulse with confirmation. Its connection to the activated node providing enhanced information about the complete harmonic configuration. The artifacts are connected, he explained, translating the gem's knowledge into comprehensible framework. Now that this one has reactivated, it's attempting to establish resonance with the others. We can potentially track them through harmonic relationship rather than physical coordinates. Like tuning forks resonating at matching frequencies, Kira suggested, musical background providing conceptual translation. Once one vibrates at the correct pitch, others tune to the same frequency will respond even at considerable distance. Vita confirmed this approach through magical analysis. The mystic realm has similar tracking techniques for related magical artifacts. If the Draconite can generate the correct harmonic pattern, corresponding artifacts should respond regardless of dimensional barriers. This methodology offered strategic advantage, potentially allowing them to locate remaining components despite the Vexari's partial coordinate acquisition. Tommy immediately established action plan, veteran leadership engaging automatically. Haley can modify our tracking G systems to detect harmonic resonance patterns specific to the Draconite's frequency, he decided. Vita, your magical detection capabilities provide complementary coverage. Tanya, unit resources can establish global monitoring network. While monitoring for additional Vexari incursions, Tanya added, tactical assessment comprehensive. If they obtained partial coordinates, they'll likely target T-specific regions for concentrated scanning. Strategic planning continued as they returned toward the excavation site, immediate security protocols establishing enhanced protection for the activate D-node while longer-term operations developed. Connor and Ethan integrated smoothly into expanded team structure, professional adaptability overcoming their initial surprise at Vita's presence and the unit reinforcements. Naruto found himself walking slightly apart from the main group, processing both tactical implications and personal revelations from the encounter. The Vexari's appearance confirmed the deliberately engineered nature of the dimensional crisis, not natural boundary degradation but calculated manipulation toward specific objective. More concerning was the entity's casual dismissal of entire realities as resources for optimization, rather than worlds with intrinsic value. Such perspective rendered negotiation effectively impossible. How could you reach compromise with beings who viewed your entire existence as transitional inconvenience? Heavy thoughts, Kira asked, dropping back from the main group to walk beside him. Despite her casual tone, her expression reflected similar concerns beneath professional composure. Just processing, Naruto replied, appreciating her perceptiveness. The Vexari's objectives make Mesogog seem almost reasonable by comparison. Attila asked he wants to rule this world rather than functionally erase it. The cosmic equivalent of, it's not personal, it's just business, Kira agreed, dark humor masking genuine concern. Hard to negate, IATE with someone who doesn't even consider your extinction worth emotional investment. The observation perfectly articulated what troubled him most about the encounter. In previous conflicts, whether against Akatsuki, Madara, or even Kagaya, his opponents had recognizable motivations despite their destructive methods. The Vexari's clinical approach to multiversal restructuring existed beyond conventional moral framework. We'll find the artifacts before they do, Kira continued, determination evident beneath casual delivery. Between Ranger resources, Mystic Realm connections, and units' global reach, we have advantages they don't, including understanding what's actually worth protecting, Naruto added, finding renewed focus through this reminder of fundamental purpose. The Draconite pulsed in apparent agreement, its energy harmonizing with his resolved emotional state. As they rejoined the main group, Naruto noticed Vita studying their interaction with analytical interest, her magical perception detecting something beyond ordinary observation. Rather than commenting directly, however, she merely exchanged knowing glance with Tommy, who managed the diplomatic grace not to ACKN. Whatever significance passed between them. The expanded team reached the excavation site, where Haley had already established enhanced monitoring systems coordinated with both unit technolog Y and Vita's magical detection equipment. The integrated approach demonstrated effective adaptation to interdimensional threat parameters, technological, magical, and chakra-based systems working in co-complementary configuration rather than isolated methodology. Preliminary harmonic resonance tracking established, Haley reported as they entered the command area. Using the Draconite's frequency as baseline, we've identified potential corresponding signals from 3 distinct global locations. The main display showed world map with highlighted regions indicating probable artifact positions, one in northern Africa, another in southeastern Asia, and a third near Antarctica's coast. The distribution pattern matched theoretical models of the original harmonic configuration, geometric positioning designed to establish global coverage for dimensional boundary maintenance. Unit can dispatch assessment teams to each location within 24 hours, Tanya offered, already coordinating through her communication systems. Though extraction operations would require specialized expertise depending on local conditions. The Antarctic location would be particularly challenging, Tommy noted. Examining preliminary environmental data, and likely under international treaty restrictions regarding archaeological extraction. Strategic planning continued with professional efficiency, IATE action items established while longer-term operations developed through collaborative assessment. Throughout this process, Naruto found himself increasingly integrated into leadership decision-making, his unique perspective valued alongside established authorities despite his relatively recent arrival. The Draconite pulsed gently beneath his shirt, its energy now flowing in harmonized pattern. That suggested growing satisfaction with its current circumstances. What had begun as forced compatibility had evolved into genuine integration, the gem adapting to him as much as he adapted to it. As operational assignments distributed among team members, Naruto found both Kira and Vita approaching him with complementary proposals. We should test harmonic resonance tracking with controlled Draconite activation, Vita suggested. Professional focus evident despite casual delivery. My tracking techniques combined with your chakra manipulation might establish more precise artifact location parameters. And I've been working on sonic frequency modulation that might enhance the resonance detection range, Kira added, her musical expertise complementing magical methodology. If we combine approaches, we could potentially narrow search parameters significantly. The collaborative proposal demonstrated professional evolution beyond initial wariness, shared objectives overcoming territorial instincts as Vita had predicted. More significantly, it represented effective integration of 3 distinct power systems, chakra, magic, and ranger technology, toward common purpose. Sounds like a harmonic convergence of its own, Naruto observed, appreciating both the technical merit and interpersonal significance of their cooperation. When do we start? Tonight, they replied simultaneously, exchanging brief surprised glances before Vita continued. The mystic realm experiences thinner dimensional boundaries during nocturnal phase. Magical frequencies transmit more effectively after sunset, and the Draconite's energy signature shows increased harmonic clarity during reduced ambient electromagnetic interference, Kira added. Evening power consumption drops create cleaner baseline for detection. The technical justifications seemed entirely valid, yet Naruto detected additional motivations beneath professional explanation, curiosity about interdimensional possibilities XD. NDING beyond immediate tactical objectives for both women. The Draconite pulsed with what felt remarkably like amusement at his recognition of these underlying dynamics. As operational planning concluded, Udit and team members dispersed toward assigned responsibilities. Naruto found himself contemplating the accelerating evolution of his situation. In just 2 weeks, he had progressed from dimensional refugee to integrated team member with critical role in multiversal crisis management. More significantly, he had established connections that transcended professional cooperation, relationships that increasingly anchored him to this reality despite his interdimensional origins. Whether through the Draconite's influence or natural adaptation, he found himself belonging here in ways that complicated his relationship with home. The artifact hunt would potentially provide means to address the convergence crisis, perhaps even establish controlled transit between dimensions that might eventually allow return to his native reality. Yet as Vita had observed, his fundamental frequency was gradually synchronizing with this dimension's baseline parameters. The longer he remained, the more this world became his natural harmonic home. As night approached and preparations for the resonance tracking experiment proceeded, Naruto felt dimensional frequencies surrounding him like overlapping musical compositions, chakra, magic, and morphing grid energies creating complex harmonic relationships that defined existence itself. The Draconite pulsed in rhythmic patterns that matched his heartbeat, no longer for an implant but integrated aspect of his evolving identity. The Dragon Ranger, dimensional guardian navigating boundaries between worlds both physical and relational. Whatever challenges the artifact hunt would bring, he faced them not as displaced warrior but as someone finding unexpected harmony in new frequency patterns, resonant connections that transcended dimensional origin to create genuine belonging. Chapter 3 End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.